This program deals with devil worship and satanic beliefs. It contains explicit scenes and descriptions of violent crimes and rituals.
Americans are asking, who attacked our country?
You have declared a subliminal jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
Everything pertaining to what's happening has never come to the surface. The world will never know the true facts of what occurred, my motives.
And night fell on a different world.
And Iblis is thinking, I should be getting this position, not Adam, and this guy is created from dirt.
And how does the army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set?
And the conspiracy theorists can say what they will, but
I want you to give me power over Adam, and I want you to give me soldiers and minions and all of these things.
The people have so much to gain and have such an ulterior motive for putting me in a position I'm in. We'll never let the true facts come aboard to the world.
And I want you to be able to give me the ability to whisper into the hearts of mankind.
And who was the Grotto leader? Don't remember his name. You don't remember the name of a person who involved you in murder?
Now these people are in very high positions, Jack. Yes.
Welcome back to Subliminal Jihad, episode 327. I'm your co-host, Dimitri.
I'm Khaled.
And today, we are back with our latest installment of the Grotto of Truth Q&A series, number 38 today. Wow. 38, as the chat says. I can't believe it. Yeah. We, it's been a little while, but maybe 2 months.
Yeah, when was the last one?
Maybe in February.
Has it been 2 months? I feel like it's only been 1 month.
Yeah, I think we...
Really?
It's been maybe 10 or 12 episodes, I think, since we did it. But I think we did a hybrid one last time because the war in Iran was still popping off.
Yes,
and,
right.
We kind of did a half and half thing, so we didn't get to quite as many questions. But today, I think we have a pretty stacked lineup and some pretty good ones all over the place. From our Patreon subscribers in the Grotto of Truth Discord, which anybody can access at patreon.com/subliminaljihad. And hopefully getting the Discord link that half the time doesn't work. But then you can
I've been continually posting it with some regularity in like the Alwara chat.
Okay, good,
so
good.
hopefully that link will, I think I posted it most recently like within 7 days, so it should still work. But I don't know why like the email doesn't go through sometimes. Like it's so annoying. But
a problem that has plagued the Patreon platform for I guess 5 years at this point. Maybe just a friendly note. Maybe just like figure out a way to like actually email the link to people when they subscribe. Just a thought.
Yes. Come on. But we have a solution. We have a Band-Aid for it, so you can just go to the chat and you'll find it in there. And if it's not working, then just harass us and we will update it.
Exactly.
But,
but
and then in 2 years we will answer your question.
2 years. I was just going to say, as we often do, we are reaching back into the mists of time, into the era of Brandon to answer these questions. I think I'm still waiting for the point where they start to kind of thin out through 2023 and 2024, where we can appreciably catch up. But for now, I guess we can enjoy the message in a bottle kind of character of this and see the kind of things people were asking us back in the fall of 2022, I guess 3.5 years ago. Or much earlier in the run of SJ. It's interesting to see what tips people were on at the moment. Some of these things, we've addressed subsequently in episodes since. Some of them I think we still have to get to, so we might punt a little bit on some of these today, but we'll touch on all of them. There's one also that I feel might be very close to a question we answered on an earlier Q&A about Adult Swim. I swear that we talked about it.
I think we got a live question about. I think that the person who asked this question came on one of the lives. Yeah.
Okay.
And asked this question. So we did kind of talk about this at some length. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The satanic brainwashing for children via Adult Swim. I think we did address that in one of our live episodes. I was looking for it in the Q&As and I couldn't find it, but I'm like, I definitely remember talking about that for a while. Yeah. But anyways, I think Should we get into our full stack without further ado?
Are these in the workflow? Are they under the last Q&A that we did?
No, I put them under 327. You should see it.
Okay.
The main list there.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on.
Sorry for the forced numbers. I couldn't get them to go away for some reason. It was doing the auto numbered list thing, but just disregard.
Yeah. I'm going to close my app and then reopen it because I'm not seeing it. Hold on. Okay.
Should be right below our Patty Hearst.
Yeah.
Ear of the Phoenix. Check it out, folks.
Right.
Check it out, folks.
You can read the first. You can, yeah. You can read the first one while I'm doing this if you want.
Okay. Yeah. This is from. I feel like maybe I honestly can't remember. This is what happens when you do too many episodes. If we briefly touched on this, at the very end of the last Q&A.
Oh, okay. I found it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was Charles Manson Cade while he was incarcerated?
Yeah. This is from Lake Radio.
Okay.
Shout out Lake Radio. Asking, was Charles Manson Cade while he was incarcerated? And yeah, I mean, I think go listen to Year of the Phoenix, folks. The first 2 episodes are out now. And even though, actually, Charles Manson does make some cameos in it. Right, because Donald DeFreeze tried to set him up or snitch on him for planning a robbery that never ended up happening. Maybe the LAPD were like, "Thank you, Donald." And then they called up Charles Manson. It's call off the robbery. They're on to you. You can't get arrested. Maybe that happened, but nonetheless, we talked a lot about the disturbing things that are going on at the Vacaville prison, the California medical facility, Vacaville. In the 60s and 70s, Charles Manson did go through there. He was in prison. He was in institutions for most of his life. He even spent a little bit of time at Boys Town of the Franklin scandal fame. And, he was a pimp. He learned a lot of things from other criminals in jail. And he also dabbled in things such as Scientology while he was in prison as well. Which is, a long way of saying that there's a lot of opportunities for him to be quote unquote Cade, as in MK Ultra, into being what he would become. I would say probably yes in some way. I think we're still trying to get the exact pin down the exact process by which you would sort of MK somebody to go out and be a type of figure, like a cult leader, basically, a kind of criminal cult leader, like Donald DeFreeze or Charles Manson, maybe also Earl Satcher of Tribal Thumb.
And I mean, I think that you don't my feeling on it is that it's not necessarily micromanaged. It's not we have we need these Manson murders to happen or something, it's not the necessary, the end goal is necessarily in sight, it's just it's literally in many cases experimental, right? Yeah, and all they, they know that it will have either a productive effect, from their perspective, or they'll learn something, or they, or it ultimately will just be a guy who already they consider to be worthless, right? Will be destroyed and nothing will come of it. That's the worst case scenario, and I think that is often on the table, when people are being experimented upon, right? In these prison contexts. But, I think that they can imagine oh, hey, if this pans out in some other kind of way, all the better. Right.
Yeah. I think there's a spectrum of possibility in terms of the hands-on nature and the micromanaging of it. I mean, you could, setting aside for a moment the rumors from various people that, for example, that Donald DeFreeze had an electrode implanted in his head,
right?
Or something that was beaming some kind of
V2K
skull, beaming messages to telling him what to do. Or it's a kind of thing where, the informant, agent provocateur kind of character, that role has been around for a very long time, before these experimental modern drugs and forms of maybe the types of hypnosis and and coercive conditioning that like the CIA and the prison system were experimenting with. Like the idea of having, you know, a liar, like kind of a professional provocateur go in there and, you know, like do something, you know, it always, you know, it always necessitates a little bit of like a long leash, because you got to like let somebody go out and hobnob and win the trust of like whatever your target group is. And then, you know, oftentimes they only have limited, you know, like James McParland and the Pinkertons, like he would periodically have like clandestine meetings with, you know, the kind of Pinkerton representatives that would give him new instructions or updates or intelligence and things like that. But you kind of had to trust that they would go undercover and kind of riff. Like there's a lot of improv involved, right?
Yeah, totally.
And Manson and did
McFarlane
have
even was like a straight up agent, whereas I think like in some of these cases, like they are not like consciously in the employ. I mean, that was the theory of Revolution's End, right? Donald DeFreeze didn't really know what was going on until like, you know, then he realized like how he was being used, and he like got upset about it, right? Again, like we'll discuss that theory insofar as it affects that you know, that story, but you know, in some cases they may not like really real. And I think that sometimes there's like emergent like opportunities, you know, like the general objective is, hey, like, you know, for instance, in that example, like like, you know, the prisons are like an opportunity to like experiment on people, right? That was something that was like a true across the board for various different purposes, and like it was almost not even super controversial in like the general like popular discourse even at that time, you know, that like the prisons were an opportunity for experiments, right? But like so this is like a, you know, like if you want to, for instance, subvert like the left, right, which is you like, you know, want to promote elements, right, that like would be like in could be conceivably like subversive, right, to the left, right, and opportunities to promote it like might come along at various degrees. Like, oh, should we let this guy do this? Yeah, sure, let's do it. Like, should we you know, hold this group that's going to be talking about like this sus thing? Like, you know, should we let this guy come in and like hold these, you know, like Qaeda inspired like Synanon sessions or whatever? Like, yeah, it sounds great, you know. And like, yeah, so I think that like kind of creating these volatile people who like have kind of a tendency or an inclination to target certain groups who it's in the interest of the power to target, like that's, you know, just a generally desirable thing for them to do.
Right. And they can, I'm sure they do kind of like personality profiling, and they look for people that kind of have the right assemblage of traits, and maybe, you know, also like, you know, bad traits like like prone to narcissism or delusions of megalomania, or they, you know, they love to they love to control other people, like they're very crafty, they're very manipulative, and say, oh, okay, this person could be a good candidate to be a little bit of a chaos agent. And maybe, you know, the purpose for sending them out there could be anything from infiltrating and spying to something like building up a little bit of like an influential group that bops around to all these other, you know, influential scenes, and then does something like so insane that it like discredits everybody, you know, or something like that. And causes the end of the 60s. You know, there could be, it's hard to tell exactly what like the agenda was. All I know is that if they didn't like what he was doing, there were like a dozen opportunities to just like revoke his parole and put him back in prison. And it seems like his parole officer and the California law enforcement authorities like bent over backwards to like not arrest this guy. Similar to Donald DeFreeze, where like he constantly was like doing crimes and getting caught, and then magically would just get probation like 5 times in a row, you know. And Manson was even more blatant than that, because he was just violating his parole in every which way. Like he was traveling outside of I forget if it was Los Angeles or the Bay Area. He was supposed to not leave one of those areas, and then he just like left. And, you know, then he was taking his girls into the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic, where Louis Jolyon West, the notorious CIA doctor, had a little office, and, you know, like was monitoring what was happening to these hippies, these kids that were like on acid all the time. And then even, that kind of like nihilistic cult leader who uses almost like common pimp psychology, often has young women, like young white women, like become devoted to him, and he becomes a kind of like almost spiritual guru who promises a whole new way of being, whatever. And they're even willing to like kill for him. Like you could, we've made that analogy before that like a lot of this stuff, it's not even kind of like mystical Svengali, whatever. Like, in every American city, there are like pimps that are not educated in the dark occult arts or trained by the CIA or whatever, that develop social powers of like manipulation and psychological control, often backed up with like physical violence. But like there's this kind of like psychology of getting people like dependent on you and then exploiting them to do work on your behalf and blah blah blah. That's often, it's tied up with sex and all these other things. So I think that, like somebody said that in the chat, that the other thing with Manson is like looking at his background, the line between MK and just regular trauma-based mind control that you would find in prisons of that era is kind of thin.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like he was in a way like programmed and experimented on and like trauma-based mind controlled into complying with the authorities, for over half of his life. And that was like kind of his central experience and identity. And then suddenly he's just boom, like let loose upon the summer of love, and all these very, very naive, often like middle class or upper class kind of hippies that, flock there. And then he starts using these like tried and true street tactics on a lot with
and
the
he was interested
psychedelic drugs.
He was interested in stuff like hypnosis. I remember reading that like Danny Trejo, the actor, like was hypnotized by Charles Manson, like in prison,
Really?
like on the prison on McNeil Island.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
like I guess he was like, yeah, Manson told me that he could hypnotize me to get me high or something. And he was like, let me see if I can find it.
Gonna hit him with that eye dosing,
yes,
or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Danny Trejo says Charles Manson once hypnotized him in jail. Danny Trejo revealed a bizarre encounter he had with Charles Manson while locked up in jail with the infamous cult leader. In his new memoir, Trejo, My Life of Crime, Redemption in Hollywood, the Machete Star said he met Manson in Los Angeles County Jail in 1961, describing him as greasy, dirty, scrawny, and so poor he didn't have a belt, and instead used a piece of string to keep his pants up. Trejo said in his book that he felt sorry at the time for Manson, who was too small to protect himself. A few days after meeting, the notorious criminal told Trejo and his pals he had hypnotic powers that could get us high.
Whoa,
it was like guided meditation.
Yeah, 61.
It was like guided
Damn.
meditation. Yeah. It was like guided meditation, Trejo wrote, adding that Manson had the group believing they were smoking marijuana and then injecting heroin, using his words alone. By the time he described it hitting my bloodstream, I felt the warmth flowing through my body, recalled Trejo, who was a teenage heroin addict. If that white boy wasn't a career criminal, he could have been a professional hypnotist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess his interest in that kind of stuff went back relatively far. I think he encountered like Scientology. There's rumors that maybe he encountered some kind of process church stuff, which was a spin-off of Scientology. But I always thought that was a little more in like maybe a little bit into like the mid 60s, near the end of his like prison experience. I actually don't know exactly when he engaged with like taking Scientology classes, which in and of itself is funny that like, how did Scientology get into the prisons and like we're like approved to like help, prisoners? That's a little curious,
right?
So yeah, maybe he is somebody that had a long-standing interest in the kind of like hypnotizing, manipulating. He certainly did fancy
I think
himself
so.
a
I think
manipulator.
that like ways of, I mean, that's kind of how hypnosis has always marketed itself. And like, obviously, like, it's not like totally untrue that like it's a way to control people, right? And to like subvert people's wills. It's like, obviously, like the context in which that's possible, like, it's dependent on certain things, right? But still, like, he certainly was interested in that. I think that it kind of like, and that's the same thing that kind of drew him to wanting to be a pimp and stuff like that. Like I think it was the same kind of basic interest. So, but yeah.
And I think also, I don't know how huge of a factor this is, but it does like strike me that sometimes if you have somebody with that kind of megalomaniacal bent to them, kind of real narcissistic bag, and they're always rapping about how like brilliant and powerful, and they have this kind of dark charisma, they're able to manipulate people, and then you kind of look at them like flagrantly sort of doing things like criminal things that would get like a normal person, arrested and thrown in jail, and they always dance between the raindrops and like never get caught, never seem worried about like the pigs, or like whatever.
Yeah.
Like they're able to just do whatever the fuck they want. I wonder how even just passively from like people that are around this person and observe them, it just feeds into this idea that they do have some kind of like special power. Like, whoa, like it's almost mythical how they're like they have Fidel's moral vest, like they can't be touched, or something like that, and that can even that can magnify the sort of hypnotic, manipulative power of these people because the law enforcement is not touching them, and it's like, whoa, they, even though they talk shit all the time and rail as being against kind of everything that like normie middle class like America fucking worships, they're just blah blah blah, like I want to destroy everything, like and then nothing happens to them. It kind of is like, oh, we should stick with this person because they got some kind of magic juice. They never get caught. And so, yeah, I think about that with Manson and with DeFreeze, like how he just escaped from Soledad and like for the sole purpose of waging a war on behalf of the people to save the children. That's what like Fajizo said,
Yeah.
That like he just magically, it just sounds like he's fucking like Robin Hood. Like, wow, he just bravely broke out of prison and walked for miles and et cetera, et cetera. Oh, and he's here. And like the cops aren't even looking for him. Like, it stinks to high heaven. So sometimes that the absence of like law enforcement crackdown, is can have a lot of consequences and beef up some, maybe even make somebody think who's a little bit like delusional that they really are like a god or something, like they like in some kind of, and I wonder also if that's twisted in kind of like the informant provocateur relationship with the authorities, where that's a common documented thing too, of like agent provocateur is getting kind of lost in the sauce almost as like a requirement of their job. Like the more kind of caught up in whatever they're infiltrating they are, like the more effective they'll be at like lying to people, right? And they'll be more believable. But then there's always like sometimes, whether it's like a moral quandary about something they have to do, or they're just inhabiting like the character so strongly that they even start to like chafe against, if any law enforcement people are trying to handle them, they might even kind of like chafe against that, or I don't know, go rogue or like spiral or something like that. Like, I'm not sure. I think in some cases that's kind of a thing that can happen as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, like you have like a certain, you can do, I mean, I remember Louis Tackwood talking about that, like I could do whatever I want, and I'll never get in trouble, right? And like thinking that you have like the inside track, like definitely it has that effect. And I think, it's like kind of meant to in a way. Yeah, I think they definitely try to cultivate a certain mentality. I mean, like, this is not a like groundbreaking observation to say that like the police like psychologically manipulate their informants and try to make them like dependent, like the whole thing, like that tape we listened to of Tackwood where like the officer like, I got this great alcohol for you or whatever, I don't know, some kind of
like,
juice.
Woo,
Exactly. So it's like, like we're friends, it's like
it makes me think of the Charles Manson interview that's like sampled in the first Death Grips album, where he's like I'm the king, man. I run the underworld, guy. I decide who does what and where they do it at. Like, you think I'm acting like here running around with some teeny bopper? When I make the money. I roll the nickels. The game is mine. I deal the cards. It's such an insane monologue. But like he thinks he runs the underworld, guy. He decides everything. Who does what and where they do it at. Like, and it's just like this totally megalomaniac. Even at his peak of running around LA, like I don't think he ran the underworld, guy. Like completely, but he was involved in drug trafficking and other kinds of sus shit. Like,
I mean, and if you're already prone to like megalomaniacal delusions, like, if imagine like yeah, like, you know, someone tries to like shoot you and like there's no actual bullets in their gun and like they shoot you like point blank or something, and then like, you know, you already have megalomaniacal delusions and like, you know,
you're like, I can't be shot.
You know, yeah, like I'm invincible. You know, like, yeah, like it's the same thing with like committing a bunch of crimes and then like getting let out every time. It would feed, and you would think that like, oh, I run the. I mean, if you like have ever, I mean, it's unfortunate, but like certainly like, you know, there are people who have like mental illnesses like, you know, paranoid schizophrenia or delusions of grandeur, that are all over the internet, including on Twitter, and like you can see their timelines, and it's always that kind of thinking where it's like explain how this happened, like explain how like like, you know, like this happened, explain how I'm in this song, explain that, you know, like that type of stuff. Like, so
yeah, it's often like I've been mentioned secretly in, you know, like on Nirvana's Nevermind or something like that, you know, there's like references to me in all of these songs, and it's like, oh, it's always like a very confident like you don't see it, like like exactly. they're getting sloppy, and you're listening to it, like I can't discern any reference to anything, but like that kind of a scary vibe.
Like, exactly that kind of thing of like, are you kidding? But like, you know, if you actually like have some kind of like, you know, experience where like by all accounts like you should be in prison for the rest of your life or whatever, or, you know, you should have gotten a harsher sentence, or you feel like you know, it's not too difficult to fall into that. So yeah, I mean, like these like prisons were like, yeah, I mean, just the fact that like Danny Trejo was like, he didn't even have a belt, it's like, you're not really like, there's a reason why they don't really let prisoners have belts like now, you know, or like they generally like you're kind of restricted from having one a lot of the time, because like, you know, you could use it to hang yourself or to kill another person. Yeah, exactly. So it just shows like kind of how like what a Wild West it was, and like the, you know, it's suggestive of what was going on, you know, as we talked about, like the kind of like psychological experimentation that was pretty normal. I'm not sure of like, I know he was in the prison on McNeil Island. I guess the Trejo experience was in like the LA County Jail. Okay. But you know, I'm not sure like what type of experiments they may have been doing there. It's like worth like you know, if you're looking into.
I think all the state prisons,
time, right? The U.S. penitentiary on McNeil Island. Yeah.
Right. I think all the state prisons had the quote unquote adjustment center, but that was kind of like a lockdown wing where the most uncooperative or quote unquote like dangerous prisoners would be put.
You're cutting out a little bit. It's The Architecture of Liberalism and the Origins of Carceral Democracy, in a book called The Prison of Democracy. This sounds pretty interesting, actually. Yeah. Like, I don't know if it's actually like directly relevant to Manson, because I feel like it deals with much earlier history, but it does talk about like the origins of McNeil Island, the McNeil Island Penitentiary. Mm-hmm. In response to the north-south orientation of the congressional debate, Representative Thomas J. Clooney gave an impassioned plea for law and order. This is like in you know, the late 19th century. His argument, frequently interrupted by applause, insisted that Western states deserved a federal prison in honor of their status as full members of the Union. He argued that this equal distribution of American prisons was a question of democracy. Yeah. When federal funds were secured in 1896, my dyscalculia flaring up. When federal funds were secured in 1896, the government withdrew some of its prisoners from Gothic institutions and began the largest prison construction project in U.S. history. The result was a carceral complex that reached radically from Leavenworth to Atlanta, and from Leavenworth to McNeil Island. Those lines also extended in theory from the capital and the Gothic prison towns of the 19th century. The reach of intergovernmental power into those places generated a kind of cultural allegiance to the prison as an idea about state governance. In the context of this carceral citizenship, the public clamor for Leavenworth came from grand juries and city councils in St. Louis, Augusta, Huntsville, Chattanooga, and Dallas, where citizens gathered and passed resolutions to locate Leavenworth in their jurisdictions. Yeah.
So that's the construction of the federal prison system?
And including the one that Manson was held in. It talks about Leavenworth at greater length too. Mm-hmm. It's there's an interesting quote. After Thomas Kading smuggled a 20-page letter to President Woodrow Wilson in 1913, the socialist newspaper Appeal to Reason began a series of investigations into the use of sexualized violence, electrical shock, and the beating death of Clarence Maitland at the hands of the deputy warden in a prison it described as an instrument of torture. James Bennett, who later became director of the Bureau of Prisons, confirmed the violence, recalling that on his first visit to the institution, he saw men routinely strung up by the thumbs, handcuffed to high bars, kept for weeks in solitary confinement on bread and water, whipped, paddled, spanked, spread-eagled in the hot sun, locked up in sweat boxes, confined in tiny spaces where they can neither sit nor stand. The subsequent reports of federal investigators entering federal prisons read like the earlier generation of state reports that indexed the violence of the carceral Gothic. Leavenworth had already become an epicenter of carceral violence. So that's like, 30 years before 1960. Not that long ago. Like that type of like system doesn't like go away overnight, like this is like,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why like there is such a focus on prisoners' rights. Like these basically were treated as like unpeople who like were this bare life that could be like completely abused and like used for whatever purpose. So I mean, I think the commentary in the chat is quite on point in saying that like the line between like trauma-based mind control and just like the kind of abuse that any prisoner would endure in this system like is somewhat thin and porous.
And I think people are right to point out like the shadow of slavery like as a system of kind of trauma-based mind control. Not to say that like slave owners like made their slaves like MK'd or something, but it's like using coercive violence and like domination over a person's freedom to conform their behavior to like to serve you basically, at their own detriment. And, people have made the argument that a lot of the prison system and even like the police systems in this country come out of, both like a legal loophole to still have slavery or, like slave catcher patrols and things like that. Yeah, there's like a dark legacy there, and that doesn't, you're right, like just go away immediately. And I don't know, I think, then it combines with kind of a lot of this like eugenics stuff that was popular in the early 20th century, and then going into the post-war, like this kind of drive for like mind control technology and various, the rise of the pharmaceutical industry, of course, as well, being like a whole grab bag of solutions for controlling behavior. I mean, Ronald Reagan had that like whole program about like the Center for the Study and Reduction of Violence, but it was like a cover for basically like Louis Jolyon West and his buddies to do like basically, predictive, I don't know, things up to and including psychosurgery and drugging and things on like young black men to like quote unquote prevent them from, or like to eliminate their radical tendencies, which are somehow like hardwired into them or can be fixed by drugs and basically torture. It's a really, that was right up and through the early 70s. And, it was a little taboo by that point, but, and it got canceled, but still like they got kind of close to like just kind of sneaking it past everybody. Yeah. I think we're still bouncing.
Yes. I heard most of that. Okay, now you're back. All right.
If you can't hear me, then that is an issue for our conversation. I wonder if I should stop and then relaunch the stream because
that might be a good idea.
It appears that I have internet.
Go normal way. Right now, I'm getting like kind of like, oh man, So I feel like we should probably like figure out what's going on the internet.
Well, okay. I think it's functional for the moment. Maybe we try to answer. Some Q&As. I think. Yeah, maybe we should. Right. If you want to talk, I guess I won't be interjecting too much because I did not go to Burma. But maybe if you want to riff on the Burma
this
question.
Is like really crazy. This is like so old school to me because like I feel different, like knowing that there isn't like anyone listening live. Like
it is funny.
Weird.
It is funny.
Like don't you think like it has a different like vibe?
It definitely does have a different vibe. Yeah. Like knowing like the peanut gallery is there, it does feel it hits a little bit different. Maybe I mean I could try one more time. And if it just goes down, then we'll just be like whatever. Welcome back, folks. We are really going through it today with the internet, but After many,
shout out to the one person watching.
Shout out to the one person at this point watching. We should just let people know that I guess if we go down again, I think we're going to try to just record this and then release it after it's done.
We actually started doing that, but it felt like so weird. Like I was like, this is so old school. Like I feel so strange, like knowing that people aren't watching.
Colin got disturbed by the fact that y'all weren't there with us in the chat.
I felt like it was a very strange feeling, which is weird because that's like how we did the show for most of its history.
But that's true.
It's like I don't know, like it's a different energy. I mean, I could have adjusted to it, but like since the internet seemed okay, I was like, why not? We can try it one more time. But as Dimitri will attest, I was pessimistic, and I was like, it's definitely not going to work. But it seems like it's working, inshallah.
It's just a little bit spotty in terms of the robot voice, but like we don't have
a
the
robot voice. You sound fine.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe it's better on the recording, and
I heard you.
I don't think that. Yeah, we're not getting the weird lag. That's what was tripping us up for the last half hour.
Yeah,
or so.
Well, you were just like cutting out completely. But anyway, before it drops again, let's try to get into these questions.
Yes.
So,
Let's jump right into question number 2. You want to read that? It's kind of addressed to you. So
right, because this is not really doesn't really apply to both of us. Parisas asks on 9/20/22. I remember you guys mentioning you'd been to Burma. What's your take on the military junta and the Rohingya genocide? How are CIA Western business interests involved? I mean, they're very much involved. First of all, Dimitri wasn't with me on that trip to Myanmar. That was, it was I went actually kind of at the behest or like at the invitation of like a mutual friend of myself and Dimitri who, was definitely asked to be the third mic on the podcast, but
the mythical third mic.
Yeah. And he was like, I'm going to Myanmar. We had all been to the DPRK together. And so this is kind of like another country that's like sort of thought of as like kind of off the grid or in some, or, kind of like a hermit kingdom or whatever, the way they talk about the DPRK. So it's kind of a similar vibe. I mean, and that was true during my time there. I was there in 2013. And like, it definitely, you could see like how, the military junta, like at that time was like very much trying to like aggressively court like Western investment and business interests and like, to the end of like development, right? Like they're like, I mean, you can really see how this sort of that type of thing, like as we've kind of been talking about, you can really see how these interests can like warp the priorities of a country, right? Because it wasn't about like, the people or anything like that, or, making sure that people are taken care of. Like it was just about like building oil rigs and stuff, right? Like we went to like the National Museum of Myanmar, and that like they had like little dioramas of like the oil rigs they were going to build, because that was like what to that like was a cultural it was of cultural significance, like I mean, of course they also had stuff like life originated in Myanmar and stuff like that. I think I might have mentioned that just kind of on the show before, just kind of as an example of like the kind of stuff you see in some of these national museums and stuff like that. But anyway, I digress. Certainly, like like you could see, like in some of the places we stayed, like there was still like wax on like tables and surfaces because like they had not had electricity until very recently, and they had been lit by candles. Like that's how, and like we were going around to all these tourist traps and like visiting these Buddhist temples, and like a lot of it like. You could see how like they had been like sort of aggressively like rebuilt with like red brick and stuff like that, right? And so there's like massive, like labor drive to kind of build up this tourist industry as well, right? So, and I think I might have even told this story on the show before as well. Like, I remember like of course I went to Masajid while I was there, and like a lot of them like were noticeably like too big for their congregations. Like they were obviously like mosques that had been built for like, a much larger Muslim population than like was presently attending them. Yeah. And, like we even spoke to people who like, I spoke to like a sheikh at one mosque who like basically like acknowledged that like a lot of people had like left, because they could kind of see, this was a little bit before like there definitely were tensions. Like I myself was like spit on by like Buddhist youth, like while I was praying in public, now I like kind of go like, this is like really it was not too long after I first converted. So now I kind of feel like, it's always nice to be in a Muslim country where like it's kind of normal to just like pray on the street. I feel like even for even for a white convert, I kind of can sometimes stick out. Like I'm very, very pale, so like in terms of what your identikit Muslim looks like, I might stick out in some ways, but in general, like like I just don't like the sort of I mean, maybe it's Riyadh in some way. I don't like don't like the attention that it brings, but yeah, like at that time I was like, well, I gotta pray, rather than like prioritizing trying to find a place where I can do it like in some seclusion or in a mosque. So I would just be praying like in public spaces like in Burma, and like people there like definitely didn't like take it so well. And I mean, the youth that I interacted with, like definitely you could see kind of like again, part of it I think was like kind of a different relationship with like the history of like of Europe, but like you could definitely see like kind of like fascist sympathies like in some of the younger Burmese people that I talked to.
Yeah, I remember you telling me anecdotes about that where somebody kind of made like a blasé comment about like Hitler was a really strong leader.
No.
Right?
It wasn't like that. It was someone who was wearing like Nazi like clothes. Like he was wearing like a Reich Eagle like on him. He had like multiple articles of like clothing that were like Nazi swag.
He had that Boy London apparel on.
Like kind of, yeah. Well, yeah, it was.
Except
but it was
like really.
It was like straight, actually, like like Nazi symbols, and I was like, huh. I was like, I don't know, like, yeah, and but then I was like, oh, is that like the Reichstag like eagle or whatever? Is that like the is that a Nazi thing? And he was like, yes. I admire Hitler. I was like, oh,
okay,
all right. Yeah, but that was just like the most extreme example. There were a couple of things like that. The people we talked to, like when it came to, but that's all by way of saying these anecdotes like are kind of beside the point in a way, because these just sort of are a constellation of things that do attest to like the very like documented history of like the involvement of the U.S. in Myanmar. I mean, obviously, like I think that a lot of like KMT troops and KMT soldiers like fled actually to Burma.
Yeah. A big OSS hub too, War. Like the OSS hold heads. I think even C. Evel Younger was one of the Burma OSS old boys.
Yeah. They were very. I mean, communism I think was quite popular there during the Cold War, and like I think even to the point that like the U.S. sponsored some like more like left wing, but like slightly anti-Maoist like movements, just like to try to do everything they could as a wedge against like Maoist sympathizers. Like I think like the Karen National Movement like had some kind of like a leftist sympathies, but they were like, okay, we can kind of work with them. Although I think it might have been controversial within the U.S. intelligence establishment. Some people might have been like, no, they're too left wing. Well, sorry, go ahead. No, I was just gonna say there's certainly like a long history of like intelligence involvement in Myanmar. Actually, like I found this article when I was thinking about this question. It's called "Spy versus Spy: Myanmar's Multiple Challenges," probably in some like the International Journal of Intelligence and Counterintelligence. And of course, ultimately, like an article like this is going to be kind of like sympathetic to the objectives of like the U.S. intelligence community in general, but when it comes to history, they can be at least like kind of honest. But this is a good paragraph. The covert U.S. operations in northern Myanmar were a source of concern to the United Kingdom, which was not formally briefed on them, but soon discovered what was going on. The British, who were still hopeful that Myanmar might be persuaded to join the Commonwealth, complained to the CIA that these operations threatened to destabilize the fragile UNU government in Yangon. They were also concerned that the pinprick attack launched by KMT units against communist Chinese forces and facilities might result in major retaliatory operations by the PLA with serious implications for regional stability. British intelligence officers confronted the CIA about these matters in 1952, but the Americans flatly refused to address the issue. The French, facing their own problems in Indochina, were worried about the provocative nature of the covert support being given to the KMT and complained to the US and UK intelligence services. Ironically, by the 1980s, 80s, the descendants of the KMT opium growing communities have become such a problem that the CIA sponsored secret raids from Thailand against narcotics warlords in Myanmar Shan states. So you can see like how deeply involved this kind of fuels the sort of like repressive policies of the junta in some ways, because they have like a certain paranoia, a justified paranoia about like the manipulations of both Chinese and Western intelligence, right? They're always
you got the opium, like the kind of the opium's trafficking kind of connection, and then isn't there? I mean, there's kind of a conflict going on in, I don't know if it's in northern Myanmar these days, that is like a truly kaleidoscopic civil war with like dozens of factions, and even some that look like they might be a little bit Western backed, but including things like, I think there's like even like a Rojava veteran like brigade that is there to like fight against something. I think there's like Maoist formations, but like they're primarily anti-China. So like that's a thing sometimes that might look like strange bedfellows, but maybe U.S. intelligence might be backing certain Maoist groupings because they think China is like revisionist and sucks. So. And then, of course, China is probably covertly backing multiple factions. And I remember reading like a long Substack article about it, and it truly made my head spin. It looked like a real complex nest of intrigue these days that you don't hear about very much. I mean, you heard about somewhat in the 2010s, the Rohingya kind of, I guess ethnic like the kind of crackdown on like the Muslim population, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But before you were
running
cutting
into
out.
the same problems are befalling us now again, of the kind of up and down.
Oh, but you're okay right now, so I don't know. Anyway.
Jesus Christ. Well, there goes the stream. I'm gonna shut down OBS and just
fine.
Whatever. I guess we can pick up now that we have the connection again. Hopefully it'll stay stable enough. We'll see if this can. Here, I'll take my video.
Try to
piss me off. But I don't know. As long as we can hear each other.
Yeah, I can hear you now. So,
okay.
Anyway, what were you saying about the Rohingya? Before?
I was just saying that you did hear something about like the Rohingya ethnic cleansing and the junta, that kind of stuff. But like you haven't heard as much about ongoing kind of this like multifaceted kind of low-grade civil war that's been happening maybe the last few years.
Yeah, no, and it's all related. I mean, one of the big things was Aung San Suu Kyi.
Right.
She was like, and like this kind of goes outside of like the sort of like shadow world of like intelligence work to like the US like diplomacy and the whole like Obama era pivot to Asia, right? Because like she was supposed to be like this great beacon of like, she was like a perfect like Obama era
girl boss,
girl boss, puppet ruler, like would have been like, I think like, was she nominated for like a Nobel Prize or something? Maybe I made that up. Oh no, she was awarded the 1991 Nobel Prize. So
Holy
she actually,
shit.
She was in that club with Obama, and
if I'm recalling correctly, didn't Leslie Kean like start her career by like going to Myanmar and like profiling Aung San Suu Kyi and like writing a book about her?
I think you might be right. I think you might be right. Now that you say that kind of rings a bell. Like, hold on, let me just confirm if that's true. Her 1994 book, Burma's Revolution of the Spirit, The Struggle for Democratic Freedom and Dignity.
Ding.
Yeah.
Yep. That's right.
That's right. Yeah, there you go.
Amazing.
The Revolution of the Spirit. Yeah, interesting title coming from Leslie Kean. But anyway, so but like she turned out to basically be like an aider and abetter of genocide, basically she was actually in 2017 critics called for her Nobel Prize to be revoked.
Wow.
Because she was silent about
she is in prison now, right?
Yes, she's in prison.
Yeah, for 27 years it looks like.
Yeah. But like I mean, again, I don't know like how, honestly, I haven't looked into like how legitimate like the charges against her are. They may not be, but certainly it is true that like she didn't seem to give a hoot about like a horrible like atrocity against like the Muslims of Myanmar, the Rohingyas in particular. Yeah.
Did you know that she was married to like a Cuban guy named Michael Vaillancourt Eris? No, a British guy. Oh, sorry, he's British, but he was born in Havana, Cuba, in 1946. The son of a British council officer, John Eris, and the daughter of one of his grandparents was the Canadian ambassador to Cuba. And this is went to Oxford, etc. Interesting. He ended up meeting Aung San Suu Kyi and marrying her in a Buddhist ceremony in 1972, and they lived in Britain for a while. He got a PhD in Tibetan literature. He had a twin brother who is a scholar of Tibetan studies, actually. Interesting. And then in 1988, Aung San Suu Kyi returned to Burma, at first to care for her mother, but later to lead the country's pro-democracy movement. Interesting. So she had I didn't know much about kind of her earlier life, but she had married this like kind of connected son, somebody from a long line of like British diplomats, and then lived in the UK for a while and around like, Oxford, and then came back to like lead the March to Democracy, quote, air quote, democracy in Burma in the late 80s. Interesting. And then the old patrician Leslie Kean swoops in and writes just a marvelous book about how amazing she is. She seems like maybe a little bit of a sponsored figure. I guess.
She was definitely like very much a sponsored figure. She was like, yeah. I mean, I think now like everyone has like kind of lost confidence in her, both like just people of conscience and like also like the also corrupt like alternative in Myanmar and like her Western supporters. I think like basically like no one likes her anymore. Yeah, that's kind of the impression that I've got. So yeah, that was I think
her son Alexander Eris is still kind of fighting for her release from prison, but her husband died I think in the late 90s. And he went to Northern Illinois University. Interesting. They're British nationals. Yeah, I guess. Oh, he's a psychologist in Portland. Interesting. Yeah. So I don't know. It seems like, she doesn't have a ton of supporters these days, but she was certainly popular. She's a popular pick.
She definitely
80s,
was.
Early 90s. Yeah.
Wow.
Forward by Václav Havel, Freedom from Fear and Other Writings by Aung San Suu Kyi. Interesting.
Remember, like, the Václav Havel, didn't we, like, in undergrad, like, wasn't Václav Havel, like, pushed on us as, like, the most epic man ever because he was, like,
100%,
a writer, like,
100%,
he was a playwright, and he was also, like, a great hero of democracy.
He was a great activist.
And, like,
he brought down
communism. I think we had to read, like, a Václav Havel play or something, right? Like,
I think so. I definitely heard about it. I was made aware of Václav Havel as just an epic, man. Yeah, he was so cool. He was the coolest guy ever.
Yes. Exactly.
What if a playwright killed communism?
A brilliant,
with
like
art?
a poet, and like just the greatest thing ever.
It was also, I was definitely around that era too of like Milan Kundera and like, oh my God, The Unbearable Lightness of Being. It's like the most deep. Like I definitely encountered that when I was in like high school.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And
totally, people love The Unbearable Lightness of Being all the way through college, honestly.
Yeah. Just like, oh my God. And then you realize, this guy's just like whining about, communism sucks. And I actually haven't revisited it in a long time.
I literally, totally. In fact, I don't think I ever actually, I guess I'm exposing myself, but I don't think I actually ever, I made it a thing. I always would talk about how like I didn't like the book like when I was an undergrad and people would be talking about it, but to be honest, Now I never actually finished it. I think I gave up on it like after a couple of chapters.
That's fair enough.
I think I just was like, I don't like this.
I think I tried to watch
but
the
like
movie.
there's a lot of stuff like that,
Day-Lewis.
like the Kite Runner. Like anyone who actually finishes
yeah.
the Kite Runner, like you don't need to finish that book. Like you know what it's all about and you know why it's popular.
You know exactly why it was pushed. Jon Stewart's like Rosewater, like Iranian prisoner movie.
Right,
it's like,
the same thing.
Like
or that comic Persepolis, like the comic book.
Perfect.
You know, like there was a discourse about that not too long ago because of
the old ladies yell at her for wearing the Punk's Not Dead shirt. No,
right,
you know,
it's like,
right.
the evil, right, and it's kind of like
they don't
this
like
whole.
punk.
Yeah, they hate punk, and how dare they? Yeah, like they're just like evil, demonic, women in chadors that are like a horrible, black veil covering everything that is free. It's like the Homeland poster,
police.
Even though
it's like during the Iran-Iraq War, so it's like they actually are being attacked by.
I mean, in a way, like it's like. In a way, like I could almost see like a kind of like a really like I want to say like right wing, but like really like anti-Islamic Republic Iranian like getting mad about that because it does show like women kind of enforcing like the the dress code and like the sort of morality of the Islamic Republic, where where like some of these people are trying to make others believe now is that like somehow, again, as we talked about before, this is like 5 mullahs who aren't even Iranian, like they're really from Iraq or something, who are like imposing this on everyone and like but anyway, I digress somewhat, but suffice it to say that really, like, when I was there, certainly, when I was in Myanmar, you could absolutely see that, like, everything was, like, really, like, insofar, like, if you go to any place like that where, there's, like, a lot of, like, soldiers, like, in the streets, and like this sort of like intense, like noticeable development, like something like that. It is remarkable in a way to like see like I said, the wax like on the surfaces, like not just like now there's like totally electricity. This is just like any going to any kind of like hostel or whatever anywhere. And like before this was lit by candlelight. So recently that there's still these puddles of wax like that. Like when there's something like that, it like so aggressively kind of. Like that development, quote unquote, Ford Foundation terminology is so aggressively pursued. It's quite clear like what the sort of the talos of it is, and what the directionality of it is. And it really was all about like, developing their oil, developing their tourism, basically catering to, the like global capitalist economy, kind of at the like. There were a little bit of shades of like what's going on in Venezuela right now, to be honest. Like you could kind of see that, like open
for business. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Dark shit.
Yeah. And Aung San Suu Kyi was supposed to be the the manager of all that, but she
the great neoliberalizer.
And I think that she certainly would have, even though she would have disgraced herself with like all her other like Václav Havel style friends, like they would have been like, how could you, like, oh, actually you don't have any actual ethics, like you don't actually care about human rights at all, like oops, like a fell for it again award type stuff,
Yep, exactly.
But like but like she still would have remained in power, but it was unfortunately the military was like, nah, like we don't want her, we'd prefer to have somebody else,
I guess,
or ourselves.
I forget what her relationship vis-a-vis like China was, but I vaguely recall that maybe being a factor in her like falling out of favor more so than any ethnic violence she sort of approved of, like kind of like, oh, I'm neoliberal, but like I'll foster deeper ties with like China, which is like a neighboring country, and then the U.S. was like, oh, or the pivot to Asia turned into a little more of a hardline deal instead of like giving people sweetheart free trade deals. The TPP, remember that? God, it feels like a million years ago. That Obama was trying to set up, but
I mean, maybe I'm not sure like if that was the reason. I feel like it may have been like that she was, I think, like somewhat popular with the people. Again, like, it is like a very like complex, like and I won't pretend to be like an expert on like the demographics of the country and like the different kind of like political alignments, but it is like one of those countries that like, I mean, a lot of people there express this view, and like sometimes in terms of like, that showed like hatred or like sort of violent intentions, or like a violent will towards other people. That, like, there was a view that like, this is not like, these groups should not be in one country, right? Like, we actually like are not like this sort of notion that we're not really one people, was one that I encountered a couple of times from people there, so that obviously makes her a pretty complex political situation. So I'm not sure, like, I think like she did have some popularity, obviously, but I don't know like how far that went. And I think it could be a situation like you see with what's his name, Pahlavi, where like the other Machado, right, another Nobel Prize awardee, right, yeah. Where it's like she doesn't have the respect, like I like her, great woman, but she doesn't have the respect, it's that type of thing
for sure.
Like when it comes to the military, she obviously doesn't have the respect. It seems like they kind of hate her. So
not anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we move on to the next one?
Sure.
No, we didn't have as much time as we thought.
I hope
today.
that was adequately. Yeah, I hope that was adequately addressed. But maybe we'll return to that topic because it is an interesting one.
It certainly is. All right. I guess I can read this next one, number 3. This is from JOK, September 29th, 2022. They ask, British, with an asterisk, redacted, pop group Gorillaz is a cartoon band that gets into all sorts of cartoon hijinks, and each album has a weird narrative. My spouse saw them live the other day and filled me in with some of their lore. They tell me a recent album revolves around the cartoon bassist or band leader starting a cult. My question, sus Gorillaz?
I gotta say I was busy this weekend, right up until we first tried to start streaming this episode, and so I didn't really get a chance to look up the topics of the questions as much as I usually do, even though the Q&A is much more riff heavy than the other episodes, but I'm especially naive about the Gorillaz. I do remember almost one Gorillaz song being popular, but I couldn't tell you what it was. They weren't the ones who did "I Can Ride My Bike with No Handlebars," right? People are gonna laugh at me if that's not true, but that wasn't them. But I feel like it was the same period of time. What did they do? What were they popular?
Oh no, I remember. I actually remember. I have a very distinct memory of when the Gorillaz hit. I remember being in a kind of a summer day camp, a tennis camp when I was in middle school. Nice. Yeah, I was never really a tennis player. It was something to do. Yeah, but in Oakland,
you did beat me at tennis though when we were in China.
Oh right, right.
You can't negate the height advantage. It's just
that's true. Yeah. I'm not great at tennis, but I remember it was. I think it was at the very end of middle school. It was the summer of 2001, and my friend and I were in Oakland, and the song Clint Eastwood dropped, and I remember I just have a very vivid memory of standing on a tennis court, looking out across Oakland and rapping the Del the Funky Homo Sapien verses from that song, which I feel if you heard it, you would recognize it. I mean, ironically,
I'm sure I would. I do remember that there is a song that was popular that I heard that I knew was by the Gorillaz, but I can't tell you what it was. It's that
I'm happy, I'm feeling sad, I got sunshine in a bag.
Yeah. I recognize it now.
Yeah. And I mean, ironically, Del the Funky Homo Sapien is a pretty famous Oakland rapper. He's in hieroglyphics, and. Kind of an interesting, actually, kind of noited, weird rapper in his own right, but just happens to be on this one song. I mean, the Gorillaz collaborate a lot with other artists, but yeah, the kind of weird anime cartoon representation of the Gorillaz, that really stuck out as weird. I didn't even realize for a while, I think, that it was the guy from Blur, Damon Albarn, who was the main creative force behind it. And I knew Blur from
there's a whole Gorillaz universe.
Yeah. It's a whole kind of artistic project that it's like a digital band essentially, you know, and they had all these music videos that
That's
initially
kind of interesting in a way. You know, yeah, I mean, I guess I could see how it's sus, but that's kind of interesting. It's like an interesting idea, I guess. It's kind of like in the life of Chris Gaines, but like I guess much more successful.
The Garth Brooks alter ego.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I never like I was never like, oh my God, like the Gorillaz are like my favorite band. But I remember they were pretty popular throughout the early 2000s, and like I definitely liked them. I mean, I liked Clint Eastwood. I liked I think M1A1 was from their first album. Much more of like a it's actually got a very noited I would play it, but we're not like live streaming and Spotify would take it down, but it's this very like haunting track with like I remember hearing it like in college for the first time, and it's like just like a British guy being like hello like it's just like a desperate British man like screaming in the distance like hello like it's just really unsettling, and then it breaks actually into a very like indie rock like early 2000s almost like Strokes era kind of song, but they also played around a lot with like hip hop and like synth pop and things like that, and had like rap on some of their songs. And then they had Feel Good Inc. I think that was like probably their biggest hit in I forget what it was, like 2003 2004. Very very memorable bass line riff in that song. And then they had Demon Days after that. They had like their first like 3 albums were all like really big and had a lot of hits on them. And they were very dedicated to like I think even in their concerts after a little while they would develop this kind of projection of like the cartoon characters that represented this band. Though I think like the lineup of the actual band was always kind of shifting, and Damon Albarn was like the one constant. Like there was like 4 cartoon characters that were the Gorillaz, and so it was, you know, it was an interesting thing. It was just like something that nobody else was really doing on that level, you know, back this is really at the tail end of like the post-grunge 90s early 2000s, where like the record industry would still pump a lot of money and resources into something that was a little like weird, like a conceptual cartoon band that made these like funky hits and stuff. And I don't know, like they had a
this is crazy in
Plastic
20
Beach.
In 2015 they started working on an album based on like the possibility of a Trump presidency, like, you know, back, you know, it was like their before, like, you know, Trump was considered a viable candidate for the presidency. Of course, now we're living in his second term. So I guess, yeah, they kind of foresaw that, or it was like supposed to be like a dark fantasy of like, what if like something as crazy as Trump winning happened? It was called Humans.
Oh yeah, Humans with a Z. Okay,
yeah,
I didn't
like
realize
gorillas,
that was. I did not realize that was actually on. That album was like a Trump thing. I was reading a little bit.
The concept of it was like a crazy alternate reality where Trump became president. Yeah.
So it actually came out in April 2017. So a few months into Trump's presidency. I think I do actually remember like listening to this when it came out and thinking it was like all right. But it didn't I remember Plastic Beach from 2010 was one where like I hadn't thought about the Gorillaz in like a few years, and they came out with this like very funky album with a lot of collaborators. I think Stylo it was probably the biggest hit, and I listened to it this morning. It holds up pretty well. And it's got Bobby Womack on it, and I'd never seen the music video, but it is kind of interesting because unlike the earlier ones, it takes place in a 3D world, like in the real world. And the Gorillaz band members have kind of been rendered as like 3D animated people that are being chased by like real life cops. It actually has like an SLA vibe to it. Like one of them has like a beret with like a red star on it, and they're getting in like a gun shootout in the California desert with like a pig, and like a very stereotypical like overweight
that was
pig.
A popular theme like in like music videos for quite some time. It may still be, honestly, like running away from the cops, like yeah.
And there were some edgy videos in that kind of like recession era, and then like kind of the Occupy era. I remember like MIA had a crazy video that was like about like, I think it was like a ginger genocide, but like played very like disturbingly like real, like almost shot like Children of Men, but there were like globalist like troops going through a city and like hunting down
I
like
remember
ginger
this.
like people with red hair,
yeah.
and,
oh god,
and like black bagging them, and like I think it was Born Free, that video. You know, she just got, I guess, canceled for saying something on a Kid Cudi tour last week.
What did she say?
She said something about immigrants. It was like where are the illegal immigrants at in the crowd? I don't know. It was interpreted as being offensive, and then also she said something about like voting for Trump and being like a Republican, and then got kicked off the tour by Kid Cudi, who's headlining it. And then I saw her like yelling in all caps about it on like X, and like she seemed to be saying that she was doing a classic like "Where are my illegal immigrants at?" like woo, you know, like in a not negative way.
Right.
But I don't know
I
if it
could see
played
that.
wrong, because like who wants to announce they're an illegal immigrant in a huge public area in Texas, where this was.
Yes, exactly.
You know,
It's kind of like,
and then paired with like I voted for Trump, it's like, okay, maybe don't say that. Like I don't know.
Right.
She also, you know, got into a relationship and had a baby with a Bronfman heir from you know, Canada. I think that it was the music industry one. Maybe Edgar Jr. I forget exactly which one, but I remember, you know, she said some things about like hanging out with Jay-Z and Beyonce. Like, I'm not gonna roll around in the goop and wear devil horns, okay, for a fucking music video. And it was like, wait, what is she talking about?
Right?
You know?
Yeah.
We talked about that recently about
Yeah.
like
Honestly,
it's like, okay, like
before,
she could be on a kind of like Kanye tip of having deeply problematic like in schizo kind of politics, but that doesn't mean she didn't go through things in Hollywood.
Yeah, she may have, and she was like, you know, people admired her at one time, you know, like
she was hot shit. Her and Grimes, like what an
yeah.
interesting trajectory. They both married like they both married sus billionaires, and then their lives kind of assumed a new kind of crazy dimension, I feel like, as a result of that. You know, but they were both of them were like kind of the two most like fresh, like interesting millennial kind of music artists that in that those recession years, like 2008 to like 2012, that shit was hype. And I mean,
it's interesting that Elon Musk allegedly first connected with Grimes by searching for Rococo's Basilisk on Twitter. And now he like made the Twitter search suck so much that wouldn't, maybe that's why he did it. Maybe because he regretted ever meeting her. I don't know. Or ever connecting with her.
I don't know.
Yeah, but this is interesting. Actually, you know, this is one of those questions that comes back around because they just came out with a new album.
Yes,
called,
they did.
Parvata, which actually his title is written in
the
Devanagari.
Mountain?
Yeah,
the Mountain.
Yeah.
I listened to about half of that album today. It's very like Middle Eastern inflected. I think Omar Suleiman
from Indian classical music. Omar Suleiman, wait, the imam, like the
singer, the Syrian singer, right?
Oh, okay, all right. I thought you were talking about Omar Suleiman, like the American Muslim. Like,
no.
Okay,
no. He's kind of he's like toured the U.S. and stuff. Like he's kind of had a popular people. I feel like music heads that like, you know, like digging in the global South, like discovered him and are like, oh, this guy, he rocks. But you know, I feel like he's done like Boiler Rooms and stuff like that. But he's on a track. But there's also like excerpts from like Dennis Hopper saying like weird kind of like occulty stuff. There's a variety of like big famous people. Mark E. Smith from The Fall, who's appeared on previous albums. I think Bobby Womack once again appears on this album. But a lot. Sparks, you know, kind of L.A. faves. The brothers from Sparks have a song that's like about like a dictator. It definitely has like he's one of these artists that does claim that he kind of has like political messaging kind of embedded into like his albums and the concepts of the albums. Like I think he said Demon Days was meant to react to the Bush administration and the Iraq War in the 2000s. And he had, I think, I was reading an interesting Medium article that was kind of like criticizing him on a variety of fronts. One was the main disappointment was that at one point Damon Albarn kind of abandoned the cartoon band as being I actually thought that he was. I thought that to this day, if you went and saw the Gorillaz in concert, it would be a big projection screen with like the cartoon characters like playing and like the band kind of in the shadows. But I guess he like ditched that at a certain point, maybe around 2010. I guess he did some kind of I think he did some kind of event at Glastonbury that was like last minute because like Bono got hurt and he had to like fill in, and he did something with the projections kind of like with the cartoon characters that everyone like hated. And then I don't know, this Medium author from Culture Shock blog was like, oh yeah, that then he like foolishly turned his back on like the entire Bold concept, which like this author really likes because it's like they're like this cartoon band, and now he just kind of like dresses up in like a goofy outfit and like plays with like 12 different people and like this huge ensemble and brings on lots of celebrities and has like retreated from the kind of Bold concept of like the Gorillaz.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. Like, yeah, it's interesting to think of like kind of a band like that would have like kind of like a storyline, you know, that was like not related to reality, because you could do like all sorts of different things, you know.
Really do some lore with it.
It's an interesting idea. Yeah, like, you know, and that could like feed into the albums. It's kind of like yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing where like I always think to like be a true like mature like you know, writer of like lyric poetry, like including, you know, like pop music, you kind of like do have to like engage with fiction. It can't always just be like confessional, you know. Obviously everything's drawn on like personal experience. I feel it's about Taylor Swift too, like you know, if you're you know, you can't just like have a miserable life in order to make good music, and you can't like, you know, just write endlessly about yourself, because if you're not miserable, which you shouldn't be, then your music is gonna like probably be awful or about nothing, or just about like how you hate like this person or whatever.
It's kind of the curse of autofiction. It's the curse of autofiction. Well,
it's the whole like problem of like the romantic conception of art, where like you know, yeah, you have to be like this tortured genius who like bleeds and suffers for their art, you know. That's like kind of how we conceptualize artistic genius for whatever reason, which is toxic. So I think the idea of that is interesting, but is it like, so the questioner suggested that there was like an element of like a cult to this, or like, you know, that a cult you know, was that like part of one album where they start a cult or something?
I'm not sure which album. I think that like Plastic Beach kind of has to do with like a futuristic environmental apocalypse kind of vibe, and yeah, I'm not sure, but like all of them, I found some like Reddit threads where like, you know, fans were kind of talking about, you know, like theories behind like what are the messaging of like various songs or whatever. And I guess it is like an established part of like the Gorillaz kind of lore that they cover these kind of like noided dystopian topics like in their albums, right? So, you know, it's not exactly like, you know, I think that it's meant to be noticed to some degree. Like it's these are like consciously
kind of like
constructed
Blue Oyster
themes.
Cult or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about like someone else that like everything is kind of meant to be a little bit of like a kind of a vague political allegory to, or some kind of like dark sci-fi vision. Yeah, it's somebody, this was like somebody that just said, it's kind of funny to read it this way, but they said that the Clint Eastwood, the Del the Funky Homo Sapien song, is about the inner thoughts of a mentally deranged prisoner of a government-controlled black site. Think something along the lines of MK Ultra subject, who ends up getting tasked with, forced to carry and set off a suitcase nuke, aka sunshine in a bag, into another country in order to kick off a chain of events intended to start a nuclear holocaust. I'm almost positive that this isn't what it's actually about, but it almost kind of works. Yeah, I don't know if he's ever said anything like that, but like the lyrics do kind of sound, I mean, it's probably sunshine in a bag, maybe as a drug reference or something, but it does have kind of, there is such an eerie vibe to, and Del the Funky Homo Sapien almost pops up as like a ghost or like a djinn, like, and he pops up out of the hat of the lead singer, like in the video, in the cartoon. So it's almost like he's like a djinn inside of like his head that's like, finally, someone let me out of my cage, you know? And then, like, I always remember the ghost Del the Funky Homo Sapien being a very arresting, like, and vaguely sinister, like funny but a little bit sinister of a figure. And what he's rapping about, it's very like Third Eye Open kind of shit, but also like vaguely menacing. Like, I don't know, like it does evoke a kind of like, I don't know, drug hallucination or schizophrenia or like possession.
I'm reading about the Last Cult, which I guess was a religious organization founded by the Gorillas with Murdoch as its self-proclaimed leader.
Oh, okay.
Murdoch is the green member of the Gorillas, I guess. He's green, and
I think he's the lead singer. That's supposed to be Damon's kind of alter ego.
In 2022, when the Gorillas stayed in Los Angeles for some time, Murdoch became increasingly interested with the occult. This is from the Gorillas fandom wiki. In July, he founded the Last Cult and became its leader. In the silent running music video, the cult catches the chosen one being sacrificed by the Forever Cult, the cult that belongs to Moonflower, who is neighbors with Murdoch. In the music video for Cracker Island, the aftermath of the event led them, I guess, to be questioned by the police in a hospital. Other cult members, Gorillaz fans, found out that the video had no context because it was from the future, alongside confusing what happened before as an occult force sparking under the Hollywood sign.
Whoa! I'm watching the video right now, folks. It's actually crazy that they when did this album come out?
2022. I guess.
Did it come before or after this question was asked?
I guess, let me see. September 29th. So their album was, let's see, Silent Running. I don't know what the album
or Cracker Island.
Yeah, Cracker Island.
That's a funny name.
I feel like it must be Cracker Island was a studio album in 2023, but it seems like they had done some kind of like hype for this beforehand.
The video came out on February.
The majority of the work on the album began in 2021.
Okay, so the video came out on February 8th, 2023. Okay, and our questioner referenced, I think, their wife going to see the Gorillaz on tour in 2022. Or their spouse, sorry, saw them the other day. And filming some of those, so they might have been already experimenting with the lore for this album when they were like playing live in 2022.
Probably, yeah.
But actually, I mean,
they played Cracker Island in 2022.
The questioner is quite vindicated because this video is just like, folks, like it's like Snow White, occult ritual, like in the Hollywood Hills, doing a kind of Eyes Wide Shut ritual, summoning like a demon.
This was that like blah blah blah, like, you know,
there's literally a demon in it right now.
2022, it was that like era of like blah blah blah, demon, like roll around in goop, put on devil horns, like MIA was correct. You know what I mean? Like it was a thing. Like,
I think I would say it was around the tail end of the blah 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 era.
They were like fucking with Vigilant Citizen. I mean, to go back to the Manson conversation, which I don't know if like you know what the future of that is, because
most of it is probably survived,
preserved. Yeah, but you know, I mean, it almost seems like the entire music industry was like trying to drive Vigilant Citizen insane. You know, like they they found that website, or like, let's like just like play into this guy.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it absolutely was a trend, I would say, for maybe about a decade, from like the early 2010s through the early 2020s. And then I don't know what's happened kind of in the last, even since like 2023, I feel like there's been a certain vibe shift with newer pop stars and the types of like videos that they're doing, where I'm seeing a lot less of blah blah blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I think
like
that,
Sabrina Carpenter's not blah.
No,
Taylor's not blah.
Yeah, she's like hypersexual. Taylor is not. Taylor like has a little bit of like a witchy.
Yeah,
like,
true.
She did like a little bit of witchy stuff. Like she, you know,
on Reputation.
But she was always
videos.
like a very chuggy form of witch. You know, she was like when she would talk about witches, it was more of a kind of like a Halloween thing. You know,
yeah.
It wasn't like you know, and more like kind of like the front of the Spirit Halloween shop, and not the like a haunted house or something. Certainly not like a spirit cooking type of witch, you know. But
no, for sure, yeah. She kind of reminds me of the video I saw going around yesterday of like what I presume are like these Mormon wives being like, when you dress up like goth to surprise your husbands at dinner, and then they they're just kind of dressed up in like the most basic, like not that goth outfits, and then they walk into a restaurant and all their like clean cut like golf wear like husbands are just like, oh my god, like they just like they're so blown away by like that's like that felt tailor coded to me like in a way of like
or something like but I mean I mean the concept of what a goth is has like completely deteriorated since I was young. Like, it's almost funny to think back to when I was a teenager, people were still trying to, like, defend, like, what it was a real goth. Like, I mean, those people would be, like, just, you know, I mean, it was truly a Sisyphean struggle, but, like, they would be appalled now, because now I feel like you're a goth if you have, like, dark hair or something, you know? Also, like, it's become, like, this weirdly sexualized thing, like, on the internet, where, like, you know...
Yeah, the kind of e-girl...
I guess because, like, people have, like, a kind of, like, fetish for, like, goth girls or whatever, like I don't know, maybe because of like certain characters and movies and things like that, you know, like but yeah, now I almost feel like the goths are like associated with like being like hypersexual in some way, you know. Not to say that like it was, you know, goths were ever like prudish necessarily, but that wasn't like the main component of it, you know, like
yeah, I guess you're right. It's I mean, it's definitely a lot of it's been subsumed in kind of the sort of like the e-girl economy,
like big titty goth GF, you know, like that type of thing,
type of stuff.
Like, all right,
like,
but yeah, so definitely that was a thing. I almost feel like it was because of like the like people started to get sussed out by it, I think, you know, so like
the blah blah blah. I mean, look what happened to Lil Nas X, who was thrust very fast into like make the most blah video possible. Like you got to twerk on Satan. You got to twerk on Satan. It's kind of
interesting because he almost had the reverse trajectory to like, you know, like Beyonce, you know, for instance. I don't know if she ever did like blah 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 stuff actually, even if she told MIA she had to do it in order to be in the music industry. Like she did like the kind of cowboy Carter. I mean, that was kind of something that a couple people did. Where like I think Miley Cyrus might have done that too. Like
she did like a kind of weird like MK Ultra flaming lips like did like disgusting blah like acid art, like kind of goofy Nickelodeon style psychedelic art period. And you know, I mean she, and you know, the like the Wrecking Ball video with Terry Richardson, and kind of the twerking
did she
on
like
Robin
return
Thicke.
to country or something, or was that just like a rumor that I heard?
I think
I don't
maybe
actually
she
listen to her music.
did for a little bit, and then she kind of went back to more like kind of straight pop with like Flowers and things like that, and then she made kind of a rock opera the last album, you know, which I think didn't splash like that hard. I'm trying to think of it. No, Beyonce had more of a like a high art boule vibe like that. I remember in some of the videos for Lemonade, it wasn't a like goop and horns like blah blah blah. I mean, she did kind of do the kind of like you know, like Pharaoh Queen, I think like there were some live performances where she kind of dressed up as like this ancient queen, almost like a goddess figure that you could kind of look into. And then I feel like some of
Diptomania has always been like a thing, you know.
And I think
That's
some of the very kind of like slick high art videos for Lemonade, definitely I could only describe it as like a boule vibe.
Oh well, yeah,
like,
for Beyonce
know,
in particular, I mean, I feel like Egypt kind of like, you know, has to do with the sort of like Hotep angle on it, you know. Or like the sort of
and you know, she
in
also
Egypt.
appropriated at the Super Bowl, famously appropriated like Black Panther aesthetics for her dancers in 2015, which is such a 2015 thing to do.
Right.
And I remember being like, I remember watching it with like my kind of like NPR liberal neighbors, and they were just like, "Yeah, it's like, oh my god, she's doing it. She's so radical." And I remember like, I was long enough in my noided journey by then, my communoid journey, that I was like, I can't say what I really think about this. Like, like this is sus. I'm sorry. Like it's a little sus. Like, you know, it was that kind of era of like kind of defanged, you know, declawed, kind of symbolic. You know, using like the symbols of past revolutionary kind of movements, but without any of the content. And it was all about just like worshiping celebrities, and had nothing actually threatening about it. And you know, but anyways, I don't know,
but but they're so Little Nas X kind of did the reverse of like being blah blah blah, and then kind of trying to be like Yeah, because eventually Beyonce did like the Cowboy Carter thing, which a lot of people criticized her for.
In that sense, it was kind of reverse.
Yeah,
like where he made a beeline for.
Yeah, he first did the country thing, and then he was like blah blah blah. And then I guess he had kind of a like Coney 2012 style meltdown in public.
I think he was caught walking around Ventura Boulevard in the valley here in LA, wearing like his underwear and like cowboy boots, and at the same time I remember reading the reports about it, and it felt like, you know, he was obviously, I think he was either having a psychiatric episode or was like on some kind of drugs and was like out of it, but I feel like the cops like charged him with like hard crimes, like stuff that carries like several years in jail for what, you know, like I don't know if he, I forget if he kind of like
battery with, well, I guess he attacked a cop.
Oh, right.
Who was trying to arrest him.
Yeah.
And so, battery with injury to a police officer and resisting arrest. But he was, I guess, he was granted a mental health diversion on April 6, 2026, pretty recently.
Okay.
And will have the charges dismissed if he continues his treatment for the disorder and obeys all laws for the next 2 years.
Oh, my God. He got, what's the name? Like Harley Pasternak is going to be assigned to his case.
We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna get a handler now.
It's
that's gonna
interesting
monitor.
how he does kind of seem to have disappeared though, because like we haven't really heard from him for some time, it seems.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
The Twerking Satan kind of, like that was in, I feel like 2022 maybe that came out. It was like 2021 or 2022, kind of at the tail end that we're talking about. And then the other big one, the one you'll never live down, is of course Travis Scott, the greatest artist of someone whose mega fame always just like confused me. As like this guy doesn't seem to have like a personality, like much of a personality, and his music is just like popular, whatever is popular right now, kind of rap. Like the idea that he had like catchphrases that his fans like rage, it's time to rage, and stuff like that was like, and his weird like the big mouth, like he built that big paper mache like mouth for Astroworld, and then multiple people died. All the Kardashians all looked on from the VIP booth,
and we like gave like a comment on the sort of, again, taking kind of the perspective that we've taken before on this, like, you know, on many such issues that like, you know, because like there was like maybe I was the one who talked about it on You Can't Win, so maybe that like was, you know, so maybe it was more me, but people to this day say that about both of us, when I think we were both fairly like, you know, reasonable about the issue. Like we didn't say that like he was literally doing a satanic ritual, like, you know.
I feel like I feel we were pretty much on the same page about it, and that's not what we were arguing.
No, like what I believe we said was that like sometimes like the aesthetics of these performers, like they kind of reflect, or, you know, the lyrics, like the whole like persona of these performers. And I know, like, you know, Travis Scott like maybe pays like lip service to like, you know, good values or whatever in some of his music. I don't really know, but like, you know, I think that like
I'm not aware of that.
Someone who has so, like to me, like someone who has a $sign like as part of their name, you know, that is like kind of a like that type of like aesthetic, or that kind of you know, idea, like of identifying yourself with like the $sign, like that to me is like even more satanic symbol than like a big mouth or whatever, you know, like whatever equivalence you could draw between like Hieronymus Bosch and like that stupid mouth. Like I mean, really, like calling yourself Travis Scott with the $sign is more satanic even than that.
Right.
But like so I think we were saying was that like those kind of values, like exalting the individual, the supremacy like of the artist, like, you know, above all else, like the, you know, like sort of celebration of greed and accumulation, like that can lead to that can be reflected in like the way that these events are practically organized, and that can end up, you know, with corners being cut and people getting hurt. That was like, you know,
which did happen. And then on top of that,
that was a way of saying that maybe there is something to the connection people make between the symbology and like the event, without saying that like this was like, you know, a sacrifice on purpose, like these people died, like they were killed in a sacrifice, like, you know, that was not really like, but people were saying that. But we, you know, we were doing what we always do. We were doing a thinking man's vigilant citizen.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly. not appreciated by everybody,
right?
Apparently,
well, like because
but...
people respond this way and think these things like for a reason, and rather than just being like, oh, this is like an irrational, like dumb instinct, it's worth. I mean, this is something that I want to this is a kind of framework that I want to talk about in terms of the like the weather thing when we get to that, because I think we're gonna do that soon.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, it's a similar thing, but yeah. Anyway, I don't know how we got into Travis Scott, but yeah, there definitely that was also kind of during that Blair time. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I
just
feel like
when you zoom out and look at the trajectory of like who the most popular rap artists are, if you go back comparing somebody like Travis Scott to like Del the Funky Homo Sapien, who, to be fair, like was always big in the Bay Area, definitely more of like a conscious rapper and kind of an indie rapper, like. I think Clint Eastwood was probably the biggest track he was ever on. Like other than that, like it wasn't getting played. His stuff wasn't getting played all the time on MTV or anything. But like comparing him, like he did a whole concept album called Deltron 3030, which I used to love listening to. I think I put it in our first COVID episode, the song Virus, where like I want to design a virus that like will basically like take down the whole system and like blah blah blah. Like he was on some like Third Eye shit, some socially conscious shit, and he was also dope and had like a great flow, and his beats were tight and like it was all cool. And just like that consciousness level, that vibrational level, let's just be real. Like it started going down in the 2010s. And I think maybe it's at like almost like a nadir now. But, you could watch a million different like rap podcasts or like radio shows or something where like people in like the sort of rap industry or whatever will like talk about this of like where did all the conscious rappers go, or the rappers that talked about political issues or social issues and shit. Well, a lot of them got killed in the 90s, like, Tupac most famously. But there was definitely, and then you look at who has run the rap industry at the very top, and it's like a lot of sus lords, a lot of white and also Israeli sus lords that are running this type of thing. There's even been those like rumors about how they, in the 90s, there was like a decision from some of these label owners who maybe also were invested in like private prisons to really go hard on encouraging criminality, like the gang lifestyle and things like that. I mean, maybe that could be a little overdetermined, but I think, that's in line with the way some of these sickos at the top like think. And then on top of that, the broader thing of just making rap the new genre that celebrated capitalism, excess, and personal accumulation and like individualism and things of that nature. That's where I see Travis Scott obviously didn't like found kind of that vibe in rap, but I feel like he grew up into it, and then like he wanted to give the system what the system was like, demanding of upcoming artists. And it's like, you need to be a little hype beast and just be like blah blah blah, and like I make money, I date the Jenners or whatever, and I'm so cool. Like, do I want to be like
who
me
really is
and
another
rage?
example of that is Drake.
Yeah.
And I think that actually the Kendrick Lamar feud kind of brought this. Like, I remember that online from like it's like, what with the owl? What's that all about?
The OVO owl, yeah, it's pretty sus.
Exactly.
And I get that it is a nickname for the Toronto area, but like he loves talking about the Six, and it's like, all right, all these things, and then he's an executive producer
is
on probably
owl a nickname for the Toronto? Oh, OVO.
OVO, yeah,
right. But then why is it an owl? Like. Because it looks like you could make, there are many logos you can make for OVO. Just I guess I get the owl's like face looks like OVO, but like, what is the owl? Why?
And I mean, I know like Drake is talented and he made some good hits and whatever, but like he also is in that world of like the low.
Oh, totally.
He's a low vibrational kind of artist that is just all about his own ego.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that like the sort of perception of him that like comes through in that song is largely accurate. That he's like he's a fan. He's not like, I mean, I used to watch Degrassi. I saw Degrassi.
Right.
I know.
Some of us remember. Some of us millennials remember where he started. Started from the bottom on Degrassi. Yeah, and so I think that those, like there was a lack of there was a low vibrational tendency that really just started to like dominate rap increasingly throughout the 2010s. I mean, even like the late 2000s and very early 2010s, kind of when Kanye was peaking. I think there was a lot of hope. There's a lot of excitement around hip hop, like independent hip hop, because it always was a genre that you could kind of produce cheaply. You didn't need a big fancy studio, whatever. And there was a lot of exciting stuff coming out, but then it's kind of crazy to like think about, like, oh, in retrospect, like how vibrant it felt even in 2010 when you had like, I don't know, like Lil B, Odd Future, and like, you know, like rappers coming out like, I guess early, like, you know, Mac Miller and Wiz Khalifa, though he fell off pretty quick, but like, and you know, everything from Atlanta and like all that trap shit, like there's just a lot that it felt like, oh, exciting. And then by the end of the decade, it's like mumbly, zanned out, like, or like sicko maxed, like SoundCloud.
Yeah,
rap
I remember
song.
you losing it over that song by Future. That was like wicked, 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 wicked,
wicked, wicked, wicked, wicked, wicked. No, actually, I actually came around on Future. I realized that like
you decided that you liked Future.
Yeah, I actually
right?
decided I liked Future in like 2017, and then you know, it's whatever. But Dirty Sprite 2 is
what was that other song that you loved? It was like the one, it was about like taking Xanax. I think it was by the guy who used to be in 3-6 Mafia.
Juicy J.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that he had some interesting hits.
He described it as a cry for help.
Yeah, it was like a cry for help. Yeah. It was off one of those albums from it wasn't Bands Make Her Dance, but it was from that era. I forget which track it was, but
right.
You know, there was a moment there, but I don't know. It's just, like like Travis Scott, there's something like big studio corporate, like huge, like unashamed sellout energy about like Travis Scott and a lot of those rappers from like the mid to late like 2010s that just felt so bland and like just all about like getting money and being like a baller and famous, and then also like raging, whatever that meant, like raging and being cool and stuff. And I don't know, like it all you know, just like rock and other kind of genres like started out a little more radical and then kind of got the edges sanded off of them.
I will say that like I'm not like the biggest like fan of Kendrick Lamar, you know, but I did think Good Kid, Mad City was like an amazing album.
Oh, it was great. I remember when it came out. It was like, oh shit, yeah, this guy's like the new millennial LA like kid. Yeah. Like he's so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think like he's like honestly like pretty brilliant. Like you know, I mean, honestly, he's one of the more deserving winners of the Pulitzer Prize in recent memory. Like they give those things out to like awful people, like to just slop. Like honestly, he deserves it more than most. Like what's the other song like where it's like about his like cycle of reincarnation? That's on a more recent album. It's very good.
Yeah, that might have been To Pimp a Butterfly or later. Yeah. You know, I wonder if we'll look back at the Not Like Us kind of, you know, cultural phenomenon, which is probably still might be the biggest rap song of the decade so far.
Actually, it was
on
Gen X. All right,
yeah, but like the kind of phenomenon around, you know, They Not Like Us and like taking down Drake the way he did, honestly, going full like double barrel noited like you're a pedo, like really. Like no fucking crumbs left on that plate. And I wonder if that will be a turning point for the kind of sicko maxing like culture of celebrity that was personified by like Travis Scott and Drake. And if that broke the spell temporarily enough to make it, because now, you know, like I don't know if you've seen, you know, any of the new and probably final season of Euphoria, which is executive
I haven't
produced.
watched a single episode of Euphoria ever, proudly.
Yeah, I'm officially stopping at this point. Like I decided, you know, it's like, okay, I could hate watch like Sam Levinson kind of spiral out. And like I knew this season's gonna be terrible. You know, it's gonna be like a vinyl, like what the fuck kind of thing. But it's executive produced by Drake and maybe The Weeknd, but definitely Drake. And it's the most soulless, evil, like spiritually evil show that I've seen in a long time.
The one thing I did see was someone posted on Twitter like or X, excuse me, like a clip of it, where like one of the euphoriates or like one of the teens that the show's about like goes to like to an interview with like some girl boss like businesswoman, and it's like, listen, like I believe in capitalism, I'm not an entitled millennial, like, and I'll do whatever it takes, and then like picks up her phone and answers it, and like because I guess she's like interviewing to be her secretary, exactly, but all she does is answer it and say like hello, like whatever speaking, and then like says like it's for you, like hands it. That's not like how you screen calls. It's not like how you like, That
was one of maybe the 3 or 4 scenes in the entire season so far that doesn't involve like sex work or porn or like sex trafficking or OnlyFans or literally every storyline.
I mean,
like
it sounds like one of those revolting shows.
He's taken every character, and all the female characters are basically sex workers or like involved with the sex industry in some way. And it's like a humiliation ritual of like taking these actors who have all gotten bigger and like dragging their characters like through the mud, but it's just no redeeming like thematic aspect of it at all. It's like it's pornographic in the sense that it's there to like be like, look how sick this is, and I feel like the people are not responding to it in like the way that previous seasons were celebrated.
We were saying this before, that I feel like Game of Thrones was kind of, we talked about shit about Game of Thrones on the show not too long ago, but like I do feel like that was like almost a cultural like watershed in some ways, where like all the wrong lessons of like the sort of quote unquote golden age of television, which wasn't really the golden age of television, but like all the wrong lessons of that were internalized. It's like people just want like HBO-ified like porn and like like incest,
graphic
and like violence.
Murder and violence, incest.
Like that's not what actually people like responded to like positively. I mean, that's like one of the things that I think is like a like very interesting about Good Kid, Mad City. Actually, there's like an anti-drinking song on that.
Swimming pools.
Like which is a great song.
Oh, it's a great track. Yeah. I mean, it's very very
like,
mature track.
That is so rare, but I think to your larger point about like like you are right. Like obviously some of it is kind of like you're a loser or whatever, like et cetera, like all these ways like you're not masculine or something, but like some of it is like kind of about or that is the Kendra's critique of Drake. Some of it does have like a moral energy to it, right? Because like Drake, he is like a predator, right?
Oh,
and
no,
he was known to have preyed like on like 17-year-olds or whatever, like people kind of ignored that or like swept it under the rug and still listened to like these stupid songs, right?
And he's got people in his crew that are like pedo, like been caught and are pedos, and he's like even calling out the kind of like, you're like basically a gentrifier. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, you're like a child actor. Like, you're acting like you're better than everybody.
There's a rising like sense like that, and again, like it is interesting. You can kind of trace it back to things like the, in our recent episode about the Satanic Panic and like the sort of we talked about the whole complex around like the witch hunt narrative and everything like that. Like there was this kind of like the cultural pendulum like really swung, away from like the moral majority. You can just think of like the whole idea of like the moral majority itself, right? And I'm not saying that those people were like righteous generally, right? A lot of the time, like the reason why like we think of that as like something so awful is that like they were kind of like self-righteous hypocrites a lot of the time, right? Which obviously is something that like one wants to avoid, but
and it was
obviously
a flagrantly reactionary political project. They were like they were clearly doing all the Satanic Panic stuff in the service of
and
electing more Ronald Reagan.
But the backlash to that was that like morality itself is like laughable or like should be dismissed, and like that like thinking any like believing in good or something like that is stupid and bad. Like believing in good is bad, basically, right? Like they were allowed to, in the same way that like
negatively polarized into supporting
they were allowed to tarnish like the idea of morality because of like you can kind of see it how like again, I'm gonna relate this to Iran, like you can kind of see it in how like some or Iranians, right? Like, including like, Iranian Americans, but not just, not just the diaspora, people even in Iran, like, the brand of Islam, like among Iranians, like, has taken damage, right? Because like it's associated with the government, which some people don't like, right? So they hate like Islam in general. People have it's turned people against Islam in general because they associate it with whatever actions of the government they dislike, right? So you can kind of see this like a similar effect, right? Where like, and that's like the problem, like where those people are allowed to, like, the whole domain of morality is conceded to those people. Those people are allowed to own like the moral domain, the ethical domain.
Another
like,
more recent example of what we're talking about. It makes me think about like Abbie Hoffman and his approach to, and the Yippies' approach to everything, which was like, in order to combat the stuffy pig morality of like the middle class, like reactionaries, they have to just be little sick freaks all the time, and like, like we're just having little threesomes, I'm finger fucking, like, like just like be gross about sex, like and obsessed with sex like constantly, and then as a reaction to, though I don't know, in their case maybe they were sent to do that, but it's like, to the extent that was like popular, that was like seen as a right on reaction to stuffy, like, petty bourgeois middle class mores or whatever, and it, like being like blah 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 like all the time, or joining the Church of Satan or something, was like a way to stick it to Ronald Reagan and all these like right wingers and stuff. Whereas I don't know, like, I think you do run the risk at a certain point, if you do seed that field of like morality completely, or you just decide you're gonna like mock it as a concept, then you kind of leave the field open a little bit to be, especially when you have such a superior moral stance to somebody like Ronald Reagan that you could use. But instead you're like, I'm a little devil, like, it's kind of like, all right.
Well,
like,
I think the thing is, I think that's the thing, like, I think that there actually is like, again, like the group, the moral majority, like that was, led by Falwell, like that obviously did not represent like the real moral majority, like as you rightly said. But there is like there is a moral majority. It's not necessarily of any particular religious denomination or anything. It's not even necessarily like a. I mean, again, if you're a religious person and you believe in God, like you would probably connect this to God, but people who don't might not, but again, leaving aside the issue of where morality comes from, if
do you
not
mean
from,
like a
from
broad
God.
social consensus exists on certain
I think,
things?
well, people,
as being bad?
what I'm saying is that people have moral instincts. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And like they like eventually, you can't just be blah forever and not, and like, people don't get like kind of their hackles up, like you can't just be like, yeah, I'm going to be a sexual predator, blah, 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 like deal with it. Yeah, like look at all this like evil shit, like don't you enjoy this, before like the sort of pendulum starts to swing back, and that's kind of like, and you do actually see that sensibility in a way where people are like, we don't want to like aid and abet. I mean, like, and they're like, I think that you do actually see, I mean, just even think about like, again, this is someone who's like on the right, but I think that the reason why he has like kind of, the popularity that has, or why he feels the need to do this, to some extent disingenuously, obviously. In fact, I'm talking about Tucker, and I think
it comes up on this list.
Right, recently I was watching some clips of his interview he with the New York Times, where like they made him look great, of course, and he was obviously kind of using this like launder JD Vance. Watch out, everybody! This is like, again, didn't we say this? Haven't we been saying this for a long time? That's the whole point of all this, was to like get everybody, like keep everybody on the pasture or whatever.
Watch out,
corral everybody, keep the sheep in line, right? Circle them all up and make sure that they go vote for JD, like when the time comes, right? Which is the whole point of this entire thing. But the reason why that is necessary, the reason why that operation is necessary, is because like people are morally disgusted by, and that's exactly how he does it. He's like, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
Like I don't like it when people are killed. Like I think it's disgusting. I think it's awful. I think it's evil, by the way. But because like when he says that, like people listen because they feel the same way. Like that is what like people feel. That is why people have turned against like Israel, because they see like evil and they're repulsed by it. That's why like people like that's why Kendrick won the feud with Drake,
he had the moral vest.
People, yeah, exactly. Because like they're like, oh yeah, like this guy is a fucking sicko, and he
There was enough smoke around him, and he responded. People almost forget now that he issued his own battle rap responses to Kendrick, and they all pretty much fell flat. And they were just like, it was typical, just ego tripping, like, bro, like, you're a punk, like, you didn't.
I mean, he made like a whole elaborate music video, like, remember, like a Meet the Whatevers, no, that was what was it? That was Meet the Grams. That was Kendrick. What was his, like, was it Family or something? It was like something like that, you know?
Yeah, he like did do something kind of complex, like, in response, but it totally didn't work. It didn't hit. And then he tried to sue Kendrick, I think.
Yeah, right. So. And I think, like, there's a couple different things that you could, connect that with. Like, I think that, like, there's, like, I think that's, like, the, and I think there's kind of this, I mean, you can see this with this is the best example almost, like the Epstein thing, right? Where Donald Trump was, like, kind of chastising his base, right? For caring about this. It's like, who cares about the stop? Like, shut up, like, shut up about the Epstein thing. Like, it's not important, right? Like, and then we had, like, the whole, like, release of the files, like, and the kind of flood the zone type of thing, like, at opportune times to try to distract people from it, like, change the narrative, like, by doing something even more, like, abominable and unpopular.
You can see how some of the MAGA diehard, like, I think especially the boomers, have been, like, manipulated and, like, negatively polarized almost on, like, a weekly basis into not caring about, like, the Epstein case because they saw this Democrat, was, like, saying some stuff, and they're just lying about Trump. And, like, I saw a video with a lady yesterday that was like, it's truly staggering to see, like, the boomer MAGA mind, like, just jump with, like, totally, like, contradictory statements. Like, this is a guy asking a lady about, like, do you think the Epstein files are, like, why do you think Trump, like, tried to cover up the Epstein files or something? And she's like, well, I think they all knew about it. What do you mean? Like, oh, the whole cabinet. It's like, okay, so why do you think they wanted to cover it up? Well, like, it doesn't matter. And it's like, oh, okay, why doesn't it matter? Well, it's like they're all sick. And then it ultimately, it goes through this crazy line of, like, bouncing around back and forth. And, like, oh, Trump knew about it, but then Trump didn't know about it, but then it doesn't. And then finally, like, look, we just shouldn't be focusing on this stuff. Get over it. It happened. He's dead. All right? Yeah. Like, move on. Like, that's the end result.
But I think that is exactly the type of person who truly is in the minority. And, like, across the board, between, like, that's the thing, like, our politics in the United States, at least, is, like, so polarized and, like, so, but, like, that is, like, something that is, like, a consensus, like, the Epstein, so weirdly, is, like, this bizarre, like, like, political touchstone that is, like, really, like, an anchor of, like, our whole political discourse in a way where, like, and, like, people can't, like, get away, like, people don't tolerate people, like, trying to squirm away from it, really. I think the majority of people don't,
right.
Like,
the people in power squirm away from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Not.
No matter, like, who you are or
voices.
whatever, by, like, appealing to, kind of using the old strategy of, like, but I'll, like, cater to your grievances, I'll, like, cater to, your, like, pet, like, political issues, whoever it is. Like, you can't, like, dodge that, like, people don't tolerate it. So that, I think, is, like, for the generally, like, that is, like, definitely a good, not just generally, I think it is unequivocally, like, a good thing that, like, people, like, don't tolerate that, right? And like, there was a time when it was, like, maybe a little bit different, right? Maybe the sensibility about that was a bit different, and I think that,
which would track maybe with the older generation being a little bit less disturbed by it than, like, everybody else. But I agree with you, it's a majority of people, even across, like, the party lines, that care about it and unequivocally think it's bad, and that, it reveals something terrible. And
that doesn't mean that anyone who, like, doesn't mean that people aren't still able to bamboozle others, like, I think, like, you could definitely still see someone who's able to be like, but they have to address it, they have to figure out a way around it. And, like, not everyone can, like, slime their, not everyone can, it's difficult. It's very difficult to succeed,
We've seen, like, a lot of influencers trying to squirm, like, ones that were on Trump's side, kind of try to squirm their way through it. Like, and they're not able to do it in a straightforward way. It has to be some kind of 5D chess, or, I think when people, even Charlie Kirk, the, benighted memory, Charlie Kirk, I remember being like, I'm sick of talking about the Epstein files in, like, I forget what it was, like, earlier in 2025. but even he, I felt like, was forced to like circle back and continue talking about it because things kept coming out.
He was always trying to corral his. I mean, same thing with Israel, right? Where he was just trying to. Yeah, that's the thing that people kind of like mistook for him being like, he's shifting away. It's because he was doing the same thing. Like, now people interpret that as like, oh, he was drifting away. He was starting to be critical, right? But actually, what he was trying to do was like adapt to the like abandonment or like the turning away from Israel among like the the right wing like sort of base, right? And try to figure out a way to like work within that discourse while still like keeping them in line. That's really what he was trying to do at the time of his death. But alas, he died, or he was killed. But
right. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess
I guess so.
We wandered from the gorillas.
Yeah, so the gorillas. Yeah, well, but I think it relates to like the idea of like, sus gorillas. Like, what's going on with the bassist starting a cult? It was a time of Blair. And now, inshallah,
I guess it was
Blair.
the very end of the time of Blair. It was kind of a button on the end of, because it came out in 2023. It's one of the last Blairs ever, and maybe
seems like it was conceived like in 2021, kind of, which was definitely, I think, still in the heyday of Blair.
I get like you move to LA for a while and you hang out here, you start hearing about that cult lore, and of course, I think he generally likes these kind of dark dystopian subjects, and was trying to make some kind of vague comment about it. But there's other critiques of him. He comes from a little bit of like a posh, like artsy, somewhat connected British background, didn't just fall out of the coconut tree as you might expect.
Right.
But his dad actually did a bunch of art, like kind of like cybernetic art in the 60s. I wanted to see if there's any like overlap with Usco or John Brockman or, McLuhan or any of those people. I wasn't able to find anything like right off the bat, but he's sometimes been criticized as somebody who is like this British white guy who borrows from a lot of like black sounds. He was definitely very exposed to world music growing up in a very kind of cosmopolitan household, and I think there was that Medium article recounted a bit of a kerfuffle when I think he was like performing in Harlem, and he got a black choir to like sing. I don't know if he was playing like Kids with Guns or one of those songs that was kind of about like gun violence, and some of the singers were a little like miffed about some of the lyrics. And I mean, this is even pre, like, I guess it's after Columbine, but like, the school shootings are way worse today, but I guess people were like sensitive to it back then. And he gave some kind of very weird, I think he kind of offended everybody because they're like, well, like we have problems in our schools that are like kids with guns, like shooting each other. It's like I don't know how it is in England, but it's a real problem. And he's like, oh, we have the same exact problem. And everyone was like, excuse me? It's like, you don't have guns in the UK.
Well, didn't you see adolescents?
Yeah, I guess that there's stabbing attacks and things, but like, it just showed a little bit. He was a little bit like out of touch a little bit with like, oh yes, we have the same problem, and it's like, not exactly,
right?
But I mean, I guess he made a vaguely anti-war, anti-Bush, album in the mid 2000s, and made something about the environment,
right?
But they have some. They have some hits. I'm not going to deny that. And they comment on susness.
Yeah. They comment on susness.
There's a lot of the talented people that have collaborated with them. Like Del the Funky Homo Sapien, I hold in pretty high esteem. And some of the other people. But anyways, maybe we have time for like one more question. I'm just going to run.
Okay.
To pee real quick.
That's fine,
should we do Tucker Carlson? Should we jump ahead to the
right.
double?
There's a sus Tucker Carlson.
Since he was invoked,
Okay, yeah, sure. We can talk about that. Yeah, we kind of did already, but yeah, we can do that one. Yeah.
I'm gonna bring it up. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Sussher Carlson. Yeah, what is this from Steve Harvey Oswald on October 12th? Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess we have. Oh, sorry.
Oh wait, yeah.
I actually let me move the. There's kind of a double question here.
All right. Sorry, this is from Horse Lover. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, actually, yeah. I think I'm pretty sure Horse Lover is second. So you could read. I guess you could read both of them because they're kind of about the same thing.
Oh, they are about the same thing. What's with the Voice of America and Masih al-Najad? Okay, well, that's a little bit different, but also Voice of America has to do with being used as a CIA propaganda tool and who funds it. I feel like this is somewhat of a separate. What's the deal with Sussher Carlson? For example, his dad started Voice of America. He was apparently involved with Contras in Nicaragua and claims he applied for CIA but was rejected. I mean, yeah, I mean we've kind of gone through that story before. I feel like that story has gotten a lot of discussion among like the a podcast class, but like I don't necessarily believe it. Like I don't know, like, or maybe
believe
he was,
what? Rejected.
That he was rejected. Yeah.
Even Putin brought it up when he went to Russia for that interview.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, I think like at this point in time, I mean, it is crazy. Like like thinking about like this time, right? Like Tucker, I remember like first noticing him or first having him brought to my attention. I mean, this is back when I was like, I almost want to say like Adrian Vermeule was in this group chat. I think I've mentioned it before. I was in this group chat with like a bunch of like Catholics and a bunch of Muslims who were like talking about like, like religious politics or whatever. But like, I think it became like apparent pretty quickly that like we didn't quite see, or at least I didn't see eye to eye with like most of the Catholics in there,
Okay.
But, and that was like kind of when I remember like kind of arguing with some of the people in there about like Tucker, but it was like when he was first doing that thing of like, I forget who was interviewing him. Was it Ben Shapiro? Like it was, I mean, these riffs go back pretty far in the right-wing info space, but, it was something like about like should we ban self-driving trucks, to ensure like jobs for truckers? And Tucker was like, of course you do that.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? And like that. So it's kind of like this populist, like working class politics coming from the right, which is obviously very appealing to, certain people of like this sort of like distributist like persuasion or whatever, I guess, or like, a certain type of like, a Catholic, like people of the kind of a soft integralist or in some cases hard integralist.
I'd say they're maybe soft integralists that are into the distributist kind of model.
Well,
kind of like a Catholic alternative to socialism.
Right.
A little bit. Or it's
yeah, but it
can
can come with a bunch. Yeah, exactly. So you could see like how that would be appealing to that type of person. But like, and in general, like, and I was like, I don't know, I find this guy pretty sus. Like, I don't trust this, and I think that like you kind of see, like, he's still kind of playing that role, and like maybe like he plays that role well because like he does partly like believe in some of the things that he says, but like I think that like I mean, if there was any question about it, I think that recent interview that he did with the New York Times like really sealed it for me when he was kind of trying to say like they're coming after JD Vance, like he has been brutally attacked by people in the administration, and like then the New York Times lady who I think overall like made him look great, and like just like he overall like came off like well in the interview, which like is the fault of like this annoying person, but like
what the New York Times tends to do
exactly,
when it profiles
usually
anybody.
what they do, because they're incapable of being honest and speaking forthrightly about something, right, in particular Israel, but but this was kind of this moment where like the person was like, well, who is doing this, and he was like, oh, I don't really know, or something. It's just like they are coming after JD, he's been brutally attacked, like because he's against this, and like right. In fact, I remember hearing the opposite at the beginning of this, right? So but I think
opposite of the opposite of what?
That JD Vance is the one who says you got to go in and hit him hard, right? Like if you want to.
Oh, right.
I don't know
it's
if
like,
that's
guys,
either,
this is a totally different war than the Iraq War. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I heard like, that he was the one who actually said like, if you're going to do it, you got to go in hard, right? Like, like that was reported early on, but
that was reported.
Like my point is that like Tucker, like, he's there to like keep people in line, right? By like being the one who will say like, oh, like this actually is evil and wrong. right? Like in no uncertain terms. And it is appealing because that's exactly what people are hungry for, right? People want someone who's like uncompromising and like is able to state principles in a world where everyone is trying to like weasel around it. I mean, compare like Zoran, you know? Like Tucker is more compelling, honestly, because he like, you know, again, he's not like a politician, but like kind of he is, you know, he's kind of in the same, well, exactly, you know, but I don't know. I feel like, I mean, that would really be something because like, that would almost prove that he's like such an op because like it would seem like he has a pretty good setup right now. I feel like to enter politics, like from his position, like is, you know, where he doesn't really have to, you know, do too much and just like kind of like speculates about people casting spells and you know, it's like
I
like,
guess
I mean, where's our money, you know?
I guess I think more people, even we're not the only ones like on the left that have kind of watched him go on his rant sometimes and been like, why does he sound so suspiciously like, I'm not saying he's ever like listened to Subliminal Jihad, but like, you know, he's been cribbing some like kind of left sounding arguments and putting them out on the right and then building credibility off of that, you know, as being like a populist and all these other things, despite.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's inherently left wing. I think that, yeah, like there's this sort of populist dimension to it. And this is like a tendency in right wing politics, obviously, that you can kind of see. You know, it's kind of like deep roots and like certainly as a dimension of Trumpism in general. Like, you know, the kind of like you can see a lot of people talking about this like in terms of the class dimension of like, I mean, there is like an argument to be made and people do make it. You know, I don't think that's entirely accurate. I think it's a little bit more nuanced, but you could definitely argue that like the right wing has like largely captured the working class and in the U.S., you know, like I don't think that's entirely true.
Yeah,
but
maybe
like, you know, it's more true than it should be.
To the extent that the working class is even politically activated at all, because a lot of them probably don't even bother to vote. We have a pretty low voting rate or like political participation rate. But yeah, I mean, they've definitely captured more than what you would think like they would. I mean, if you go back to like 2010, the idea of you know, to paraphrase Bannon, the GOP Workers' Party, the idea that the Republican Party would even be presenting itself in those terms would kind of come off as, despite even in the midst of the Tea Party phenomenon, that would seem kind of ridiculous. Because it's like we all knew what the Tea Party was like really about at the end of the day. They kind of were pretending to be.
I mean, I wonder what like Republican identification among, because now I think it's like among like the working class, technically speaking, like Republican identification has risen like a lot. Where I think it must be like about like half or even more, or you know, around there, right? Like just in terms of like Republican versus Democrat, right? So I wonder like how much that has changed since that like Tea Party time, you know?
Well, let me see.
I feel like it probably has been a lot.
I feel like it's still the. It says it's still evenly split. I feel like for a long time it's been there's slightly more registered Democrats than there are Republicans, but they're actually the biggest faction are registered independents, and then of course they lean one way or the other. Let me see.
Well, this is like from an NPR interview, right? So you can look at the data. This is like from some pollster or whatever. You can look at the data in terms of by income that defines working class voters. In the 2008 election, Obama got 63% of voters making less than $50,000, and McCain got 35%. That's a 28% margin. Wow. In 2012, Obama got 60%. It fell to a 22% margin. In 2024, Harris got 48.5% and Trump 49%.
Oof.
I mean,
yeah, that's a big erosion.
That's huge. That's a gigantic erosion.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That's not anyway, good. To be at parity is kind of shocking, you know.
My point is that like, you know, that's not something that's confined to just Tucker necessarily. Certainly it is and like there are things like I'm not saying that he doesn't say things that are like quite true, but I'm just saying he is not trustworthy.
Oh yeah,
at all.
I don't trust it for a second. I mean, this has been a long
time
time coming, almost the entire time that we've had this show. I feel like even when he was still, I mean, it's funny. I forget when he was fired from Fox, but I feel like this question might have been even.
Yeah,
he might have still been on the air at the end of 2022. I feel like maybe this is around the time he got fired, you know, and then moved over to X, because I think this is around the time Elon bought X.
Yeah,
you know, but now he's blazing this trail now of being this kind of standard bearer for a certain wing the Republican Party, or of the right, that is a little more, that isn't totally on board with. They haven't gone all in on Zionism. I don't know, but
definitely. In fact, they are opposed to it. Like I think that they are kind of like, I think that what they are not all in on maybe is like supporting Palestinians. They might like also hate Muslims, but I mean, like Tucker was like saying literally like, I think it's disgusting to mock Allah. Islam's
he was.
worship Allah. You should be like attacking what someone else worships. Like so, that's a big like shift from like how people on the right generally are. Like so, obviously like that's, I agree with that very much. Like, but and that is like say in the context of like Israel issues, like that is crazy compared to how like things have transformed in my lifetime. Like the idea of someone on the right saying like, that we like should be like, we should be respectful of Muslims and like these like Israelis are committing genocide. Right. I mean, like if you really think about it, it's kind of nuts. But like it shows, I think that what it reflects is what I was saying before, not that he has like these great moral instincts, but that like the people do, and that there's a need to like capture and neutralize them. Right. That's like what I think is really what is going on. But
I think that's that's a dynamic that pops up all over the place. And I think, you also see it with like personalities that like slide in and start having this kind of a dem sock like left posture all of a sudden, and then everyone's like, oh my god, like they're and it's kind of like, well, they're taking a stand on. It makes me think of Herr Plattner from the great state of Maine, the great high wasp Blackwater mercenary, who I guess had a change of heart sometime in the last 5 or 6 years, and is now a hecking socialist. Sorry to our one listener who hates it when we say hecking, but in this case it fits. I'm sorry. But yeah,
maybe I almost feel like I was thinking about that comment actually, like and I was thinking like I almost want to like make like fucking the new heckin', because like that's really like the cringe thing that like that type of person does. It really, it's fucking without
the apostrophe.
Yeah, without the G. Yeah, like fucking. Like these fucking scum. Like that. Like who? Like. But
that pure
anyway,
punk slash like sex and vulgarity.
Right, exactly. Because like they actually, there's a sort of a divide, right? There are the people who say heckin', but they're kind of like Reddit. They're like Redditors,
it's more of a Reddit
like the kind of like cringe, like millennials who love like Digimon or whatever.
It's like
no
pretty chuggy.
Digimon,
it's pretty chuggy to say heckin'.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas like it's wholesome chungus.
Yeah. But that's not what these people are like. Like they're
sharp
different.
language.
They're fucking like they don't give a fuck.
Sharp language backed by nothing.
Bags,
No, I mean you're right. You're right. It's sharp language backed by nothing. Like, and that's what. In fact, Herr Plattner, he uses that now. I mean, even more like normie Democrats are like using that of like, Josh Shapiro's like, my motto is get shit done. Everyone loves saying shit and like, bleh, like piss and Donald Trump sucks.
It started with Beto O'Rourke, I feel like. Right? Where he was like, members of the press, what the fuck?
He's such a little Gen X fucking hacker suslord. Oh my god. This is not fucking okay. All right. It's like that kind of thing. And so now, like, you got Graham Plattner being like, enough of these fucking bullshit wars, man. Or something like that.
Right.
And it's like, okay, but I noticed in a lot of the fight now he seems to poise for victory. I think didn't his opponent drop out in the primary? So now he's at least going to the general.
She was like polling terribly, right? Like
right.
She was like destined for
so
loss,
congrats Majority Reporter, whoever the fuck that are worshiping this like Ustasha the Totenkopf tattooed motherfucker rich kid who lies about his entire background.
I feel like he's destined to be the next Fetterman.
Oh, I mean, it's the same agency promoting him, Fight Agency. But I was thinking that, in a lot of the fighting back and forth, people trying to defend him, there is this kind of assumption. I think people on the right do this, people do this with Tucker as well. But it's like, oh, like, wow, he's saying the thing I agree with. how brave and bold and refreshing and awesome and blah blah blah. And I don't know, for whatever reason, people don't think that, like, it's not like it was a secret that this was popular, that this is a popular position to have now.
Yeah.
Like you said, the people get there first, and then the politicians react to it and pander to them to try to get them to buy into the kind of more or less business as usual with like a couple slight tweaks. And so I think with both Graham Platt, it's interesting the commonalities between a Graham Plattner and a Tucker Carlson, both products of elite East Coast boarding schools.
Yeah.
Both like WASPs of
man,
like estimable backgrounds.
Did we talk about this in the show, the country club thing yet with Tucker Carlson? Like
I don't think so.
Like we did talk about it.
No, I don't think so.
It was like this clip where I think actually it was like an interview that he was doing like with his dad or something, or maybe I'm getting two different things confused. But it was one where like he was talking about how like someone in like the sort of green room before his show on Fox like bragged to him about it was like a Jewish person.
It was him and his brother. It was him and his brother. Yeah.
They bragged about suing a country, like someone bragged to them about suing a country club to get in when they were Jewish, right? Because the country club, and Tucker was like, "That's disgusting to me. That's just revolting, like that you would do that. Like it's a club; they should be able to let in or keep out whoever they want. It's like this is America, you know." Like he was like outraged. Like,
no, that's funny.
He called it disgusting.
That actually might have been a different interview because it reminded me of what he was when he had his brother on his show, and they were talking about Trump, and he said he's like, "Oh, I remember." Being at one of these clubs, obviously one of these like WASP clubs on like Palm Beach that doesn't let like Catholics or Jews or black people in or something, which is what he means in terms of people should be allowed to have a club. And he was sitting there at some point and people were gossiping about like, did you know Donald Trump just bought like the, I think it was the Merriweather Post, kind of estate in Palm Beach that he then turned into Mar-a-Lago. And they're like, oh my God, he bought it right across the street from our club. And Tucker was like, and like Donald Trump's never getting into that club, like that's why he that's why he bought Mar-a-Lago. And then it was all part of him saying that Trump has an obsession with WASPs. Like he's absolutely
Yes, they talked about WASPs.
He has WASP derangement syndrome, something that maybe we've been accused of having a little bit. But I think given that they're so they buzz around so silently, I think maybe it's okay in our case to have. I think we have a more refined case of, but Trump being a
you're
Scottish
the real,
German
Albion seed truther, but I mean obviously I know about the phenomenon of WASPs and their influence in our culture, and I
it's
don't
just something that's very often overlooked
substantially. Yes,
in both mainstream kind of discourse and conspiracy discourse and leftist discourse, etc. Like they've always been there. They were the first people to dominate everything.
Tucker, you can really see it. Like how,
oh yeah. He is like he embodies the particular like standpoint epistemology of the high WASP.
Yeah. Right, like it matters, Like
some of them have ended up in like funky places. It's not like every WASP is like programmed to be exactly the same, but like there's this kind of sense of like entitled nobility. And like my ancestors were here first, like kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like we built this country kind of thing. And there's even a lot of like self-hating WASP thing. Like we used to run everything. And then what happened? We fell apart. Like somehow there's a failing in the great WASP, like upper class, the Eastern establishment, where they kind of they lost their edge and their gumption to lead, to like stand up and be the vanguard of American society and like lead everything. I mean, I would argue that I don't think they really abandoned it. I think that it did kind of diffuse maybe into more, even like look how much of like the institutional NGO left is like led and funded by WASPs that like went to a liberal arts college and then like became kind of like peaceniks or involved in some kind of charity thing and have kind of like interesting quirky quixotic politics and like a Abby Rockefeller, right? Or some other types of people or Leslie Kean, like they're this is sort of the business that they get engaged in if they've been kind of at the top for so many generations. And Tucker's like kind of no different. I mean, his dad, I forget if we did talk about this recently, about how like his dad was not born like biologically into the upper caste, but he was like adopted by a rich family, right? I think that's what it was with Dick Carlson, his father. And then he first married, he almost has like a Hank Harrison vibe a little bit. Like he married a descendant of the Henry Miller cattle king fortune. He was one of the great cattle barons of California during the Gilded Age. And but then I guess she was like the crazy hippie in San Francisco that like abandoned her children and went off to live in like a commune or something. And so, Tucker was left with like just his dad. And then his dad went on to marry an heir to the Swanson frozen dinner fortune after that. So, and Tucker was sent to all the little prep schools and boarding schools and whatever. And like he very much was brought up in though maybe feeling like a little bit of an outsider. Maybe that's why he loved the Grateful Dead so much. But he nonetheless, he was very much like grew up inside of this world with these old, and he identifies with that micro ethnicity. You know what I mean? Like that class, that ruling class, like micro ethnic background.
It is interesting because, Dick Carlson has a kind of like a Horatio Alger type of life. I mean, it wasn't that he was just adopted. He was born with rickets and mildly bent legs because his mother starved herself to keep the pregnancy secret. Because his parents were like teens. Right. 15. His mom was 15. Shortly after he was born, he was given to the Home for Little Wanderers, an orphanage in Boston. A home wanted for foundling. Literally, like he was advertised in the papers as a foundling, looking for a home. This is crazy. Florence Moorberger, a housewife in Malden, was the only person to respond. She and her husband, Carl, had 3 children, but were unable to have more. Carl and Florence agreed to foster Richard until a family wanted to adopt him. He lived with the Moorbergers for over 2 years and stated that he developed a deep bond with the family. During that time, he claimed many prospective parents came to visit him, including his birth mother, posing as her own sister. In 1943, Richard Boynton attempted to persuade Dorothy Anderson to accompany him in stealing their baby and getting married. When she refused on the grounds that she was a junior in high school and nobody but her parents knew about the baby, he shot and killed himself 2 blocks from her house. That same year, he was adopted by Warner Carlson, a wool broker, and his wife Ruth, and took their surname.
Whoa.
His adoptive father died when he was 12. And then,
Wait, so Richard, Carl Moberger killed himself?
No, it wasn't Carl Moberger. It was his father, his real father. Tried to persuade his mother to like kidnap him, and then she refused because like she was a junior in high school and nobody knew about the baby, and so then he just shot and killed himself.
Jesus. Dark.
Yeah.
Wow. Man.
Yeah. That almost sounds like that's like very like that's like a modern Dickensian fable kind of. Yeah,
and then he actually,
he got into KABC TV in Los Angeles. Yeah,
right. He started working for the Los Angeles Times and UPI. Interesting. He worked for the Hearst movie columnist Luella Parsons in Beverly Hills in the early '60s, and then he went. Oh yeah, that's right. He met. Let me see. Carl Lance Brisson, the son of actress Rosalind Russell. I guess he went up with him to San Francisco in 1965. What timing, right? Working as freelance independent television reporters, they made less than $100 per week until they were hired by KGO TV. And then they had, interesting, actually. I had seen little references to this in the SLA story or in some of the media of the time. Carlson and Brisson became best known for a September 1969 article in Look in which they linked Mayor Joseph Alioto to organized crime. Alioto later filed a $12 million libel lawsuit against the magazine. And I guess I don't know how that exactly ended up. It's
very weird that Tucker like identifies so strongly with WASPs when it seems like, I mean, I don't know, like if his parents like are, it seems like, like his father has like a, had a very difficult childhood at least, or upbringing up to a certain point, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe Anderson is. And then like his mom is, it seems like she's Italian, his biological mother.
His biological mother?
Lisa McNear Lombardi.
Lisa
sounds like
McNear.
She's either
she might be part
Irish, Italian, or both.
Well, she is part. I believe. Yeah, she must be part Italian, and part Irish, but like is also a descendant of Henry Miller, no relation to the author, but Henry Miller, the cattle king of California. Yeah, Tucker Carlson's mother, Lisa McNear Lombardi, was a free-spirited artist who mostly disappeared from Tucker's life when he was 6 years old. Yeah, she was a free-spirited artist who came from a wealthy California family. Her work has been called weirdly camp. Oh my God, this is interesting. Okay. Instead, after she left the family, she joined a crew of artists who hung out with David Hockney in the 70s and 80s. Gay Times, a London quarterly, called her work weirdly camp, adding, "We want the sculptures for our kitchen." Lombardi's sculptures consisted of vibrant wooden oversized versions of everyday household items like peeled lemons and dice. She showed them infrequently. 8 months before her death from cancer in 2011, she had a joint exhibition. The Fame magazine, a British music blog, described the show as, quote, cheerful but disturbing. Born in 1945, so she would have been actually right around Aquino's age, into one of San Francisco's wealthiest families, Lombardi McNear Lombardi. I don't know if that's a typo, was one of 4 children who spent her life running away from her privileged heritage. Her mother, Mary Nicol James, was a cattle baron heiress whose ancestors owned 3 million acres of ranch land across 4 states. Her father, Oliver Lombardi, was a prominent insurance broker. Lombardi majored in architecture at UC Berkeley. While in college, she started dating Richard Carlson, San Francisco TV journalist from a considerably less prosperous background. They married in 1967, and within a few years, they had 2 sons, Tucker and Buckley. LOL, those names. The marriage grew contentious, and when Richard was offered a job as a local news anchor in San Diego, he took his boys there while Lombardi stayed in L.A., and soon Richard sought a divorce and claimed Lombardi could not be trusted to supervise their children because she frequently used alcohol, marijuana, and cocaine, the New York Times reported. They divorced in 1976. And I guess she kind of, she stayed in L.A., befriended Mo McDermott, an L.A.-based British sculptor and assistant to David Hockney. Yeah, big painting guy, David Hockney. He has interesting paintings. Let's see. Soon, Lombardi became a member of Hockney's entourage and was often seen at Friday night gallery openings on La Cienega Boulevard and Hockney's Hollywood Hills home. Quote, she was more like a hippie, arty type of person. I couldn't ever imagine her being a mother, Joan Quinn, the West Coast editor of Interview magazine, said. She was very nervous all the time. She was never satisfied with what was going on. In terms of being a person, of being with people, she was ill content. Wow. Lombardi and McDermott shared a studio in Hollywood before moving to a house in Echo Park. They collaborated on sculptures. She was bohemian, very ambitious, and somewhat withdrawn. She had come from a lot of money, and that reflected on her personality. She wasn't a snob in any way, but she had the manners of a private schoolgirl, someone who was fighting the establishment. Interesting. Oh, some people believe,
kind of Patricia Hearst coded.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, yeah, many such cases of like kind of rebelling against the curse, right? The money disease,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess she lived with did she live with a woman for years, or McDermott? I don't know if McDermott was like a guy. Mo McDermott was. Yeah. So she lived together with Mo McDermott, but I think he died from liver failure, from alcoholism in the late 80s. And then she fell in with British painter Michael Vaughan, one of Hockney's peers in the British art scene, known as the Bradford Mafia. They married in 1989, and for years afterward would split their time between the Pyrenees of southwest France and South Carolina's Sea Islands. After her death in 2011, I remember hearing about this. It appeared that Lombardi might have disinherited Carlson and his brother. The protracted battle over Lombardi's estate eventually went to the California Appellate Court, which allowed the Carlson brothers to keep their shares in 2019. So he had to... That's some cold wasp shit right there, where he has to like fight in like probate court to get like the shares of his mother's like inheritance that she was just like, fuck my sons, like I don't want to give it to them.
Yeah.
Like that's a classic kind of thing where, I mean, usually you can assume that if somebody comes from a great American fortune, they are going to leave their assets to their children. But when they don't, it's probably for some like fucked up like interpersonal like resentment reason, like some kind of like, oh, I want to control you beyond the grave, or like spite you because you didn't love me enough. Like it's the money disease, it's fucked up. So okay, so that explains. I mean, maybe it explains a little bit of Tucker, like he's in the high wasp class, but then simultaneously kind of feels like his dad maybe did at times, like feel a little bit like a Horatio Alger or a Great Gatsby kind of figure. But I think he did his stuff in San Diego was like a little bit weird. I guess he went back to LA in 71. In 75 he went to San Diego to work for a TV station, but he quit after 18 months and said it was stupid and hypocritical. He was involved in kind of a famous story where he outed a local tennis player, Dr. Renee Richards, as a transgender woman. But he called this like hypocrisy, like the station was full of hypocrisy. Carlson also targeted G. Elizabeth Carmichael and outed her as a transgender con artist, refusing to refer to her as a woman when instructed to by the judge presiding over the trial. The story was popularized in the HBO miniseries The Lady in the Dale. Interesting. Okay. So the trans issue, like that's nothing new for the Carlson family.
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah, this is actually a little bit sus. In 1977, Carlson joined San Diego Federal Savings and Loan, later Great American First Savings, a savings and loan headed by Gordon Luce, a former governor of California cabinet member under his close friend Ronald Reagan, as its public affairs director. Within 3 years, Carlson became vice president of finance. Great American First Savings was mired in controversy due to the bank's political connections. For example, in 1984, the bank received negative press for allowing Edwin Meese, advisor to Ronald Reagan, to be 15 months delinquent on his mortgage. Wow. That same year, bank officers were accused of receiving federal jobs in exchange for being favorable toward Meese. Luce stated that he saw the loans to Meese as the natural evolution of mixing business, politics, and friendship. Wow. In 1981, 60 Minutes had Mike Wallace interview Carlson about controversial home foreclosures executed by the bank, in which the bank had been accused of duping low-income Californians. Carlson hired a camera crew to videotape the interview, and when the 60 Minutes cameras were not rolling during a break, caught Wallace making a racist joke about blacks and Hispanics. Wallace said, "You bet your ass the contracts are hard to read if you're reading them over watermelon or tacos."
Whoa,
wow.
Okay.
Mike Wallace, bro. Oops. Wallace was forced to apologize, and Carlson left Great American in early 83 to go into politics. So he tried to get appointed to the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, and then the following year just tried to run for mayor of San Diego under an embattled incumbent, Roger Hedgecock. But I guess he was criticized, like his campaign was a little bit of a disaster and kind of exposed more of his ties to Great American First Savings, which is very sus. Kind of makes me think of like, was he doing a little helping hand with like Contra money laundering type shit? Remember when the savings and loans all blew up, at the end of the 80s? But yeah, so he lost. He lost the mayor election. But then guess what? This is where it comes in. In the summer of 86, U.S. President Ronald Reagan announced his intention to nominate Carlson as an associate director of the United States Information Agency to succeed Ernest Eugene Pell, probably from the Pell family, like Claiborne Pell, probably another WASP, I'm guessing. So Carlson became director of Voice of America, a U.S. government-funded, state-owned multimedia agency which serves as the U.S. federal government's official institution for non-military external broadcasting, right? So they would broadcast around 50 languages to more than 130 million people around the world. And Carlson was the longest-serving director in VOA's 50-year history. Then in June 1991, after his work was almost complete and the Soviet Union was collapsing, Carlson left Voice of America after President George H.W. Bush nominated him to be the U.S. ambassador to the Seychelles. That's a little bit random, right? I mean, I don't know much about the Seychelles except that they're islands, but it's kind of like a random place for ultra WASP spy master sicko George H.W. Bush to send you after your successful tenure at Voice of America.
Isn't it like a kind of like a tax shelter, like a little bit?
I think so. I think it definitely is. It is, let's see. Yeah, it's off the coast of East Africa. And let me see. how many people even live? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know very much about
a really small country.
Right,
yeah,
I do think it's got tax shelter.
Wow, it consists of 115 islands in the Indian Ocean.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Modern piracy.
It's quite tiny. You can barely see it on the map.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I think it's often been the meeting of like, wasn't there a meeting with like Trump associates in 2016 in the Seychelles? I want to say.
Yeah, it's a prominent tax haven, apparently. Yeah, offshore jurisdiction for international business companies, zero corporate tax, no withholding tax, high financial privacy. Yeah,
it was the home of the Air Force Satellite Control Network of the United States until August 1996.
Interesting.
Which was pulled out after the Seychelles government attempted to raise the rent, on it. Kind of similar to the Omega Towers in Liberia. They got really pissed off when they tried to really charge like any kind of rent on it. And they're like, we're just going to destroy them. Let's see. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. Like
the corporate tax haven index at taxjustice.net gives them, 100% score for the lowest available corporate income tax rate. The 70 score of a 70 out of 100 for corporate tax abuse. 100 score for transparency gaps. All right, so I don't know.
Yeah, his career after that he keeps bopping to like weird things. So after the Seychelles thing, I mean, I guess Bush doesn't win re-election. So in March 1992, Carlson became the CEO of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. The private corporation funded by the American people. I think that's like the entity that funds PBS and other affiliates, right? It says during his tenure, the Republican Party began its official shift on public broadcasting when it added a plank to its platform condemning public media as misguided, ridiculous, and undeserving of government support. The party's official position was that public media had a liberal bias, and the party looked forward to the privatization of the system. I guess they just defunded PBS, so mission almost accomplished. And he was there for 5 years. Then, this is another kind of weird pivot. In 1997, he became president and CEO of King World Public Television, a subsidiary of King World Productions, the syndicator of Oprah, Wheel of Fortune, and Jeopardy, among other successful TV shows, until the network was purchased in the summer of 1999 by CBS for $2.5 billion. Then he kind of like got involved with a lot of like mysterious, like kind of international relations, kind of negotiating kind of little things. Like he would fly around the world. Says he was involved in negotiations on behalf of the U.S. government with many foreign governments, including those of China, Korea, the USSR, Germany, Georgia, Zaire, now the DRC, Lesotho, South Africa, Somalia, and Israel. In 1990, while serving as director of VOA, Carlson jointly addressed the Israeli Knesset with Steve Forbes. Great. He was an international observer to the first democratic elections in South Africa. In 1997, he was deployed by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe to work as an international observer in the parliamentary elections in Albania, overseeing poll places. From 1992 to 97, he was president of Intermedia, the Russian state-owned global research consulting firm, which conducts opinion surveys for government agencies in 75 countries. He was recently its chairman. Later, he became an advisor to the Institute for the Study of Terrorism and Political Violence. In 2003, he became vice chairman of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, which I believe is just like literally like a Israel Zionist Israel think tank, like neocon, whatever.
Yeah, I think so.
He held that position for 8 years. Then, let's see, in 2021, he was reported to be on the board of directors of Policy Impact, a lobbying firm. The firm has lobbied the U.S. on behalf of the Viktor Orban government in Hungary.
Right, yeah.
That explains a little bit why Tucker loves Orban so much. And he did write a weekly column. I think he also, I remember finding like I don't know if it was a New Yorker article or something about, it was a profile of Tucker Carlson's dad, but like maybe 20 years ago. And he did like a lot of weird stuff during the Iraq War. Like he traveled to Iraq a lot and was doing like negotiations or maybe business deals. Like
I think Tucker like went on a lot of those trips. I remember like he like
did.
in interviews has like talked about like going with him.
No, he was. And back in his bow tie era where he still was like a total neocon. Yes, he did in 1979 marry Patricia Caroline Swanson, an heiress to the Swanson frozen food fortune. She was the daughter of Gilbert Carl Swanson and the niece. How about this? The niece of J. William Fulbright, of the Fulbright Scholarship, right? And then she legally adopted Tucker Carlson and his brother Buckley.
Right.
So in a way, he was formally adopted, brought into the will, so to speak, of the Swanson frozen food fortune, right? So I don't know, like, so that career, I mean, obviously I think, some people say that, I mean, it is true. Like his dad basically ran the biggest like CIA, whether or not he was literally CIA, like for all intents and purposes, he was responsible for the biggest U.S. propaganda agency that would push CIA propaganda in maybe one of the most naked decades of CIA doing really shady bullshit all around the world. The 80s, Iran-Contra, everything. So I'm willing to say, like he's CIA. And then it is true that I guess Tucker has said that that he applied to work for the CIA but was rejected, right?
Right, yeah.
Which who knows? Who can say?
I don't know why. He would be rejected.
I mean, let's remember that another scion, a silk topper scion, Anderson Vanderbilt Cooper, also actually interned at the CIA, I believe, right out of college, or right out of college, but then turned down actually working for them, of course. And then these guys became the biggest talking heads of their generation on all of the big cable news networks. But now, Tucker. We know where Anderson is kind of situated, right? He's like the normie, kind of liberal, cosmopolitan centrist, like whatever. But like Tucker has gone on this extra journey after getting fired from Fox, right? I mean, he'd already started to shift from his pure bow tie, like 2000. I mean, he was on MSNBC, shockingly, in the 2000s, being like a right-wing guy and like Crossfire and stuff. But he had already kind of gone, he had adjusted towards MAGA and the kind of populist thing. And I was rather surprised to hear him spit this populist rap about, this and that and the elites and everything, when it's like he also does self-identify so much as coming from a lineage of like the oldest elites possible, but at the same time, he's very disappointed. It seems that's a part of his character, at least. Like he's very disappointed that the WASPs have sort of like lost their touch and really their nerve, like their will to like stand up for the values of this country.
Yeah, it is strange. Like, because it seems like his like actual. I mean that because like he did particularly like mention WASPs, and he has this like very aristocratic attitude, but it seems like his his like background is not like a Patty Hearst type of background, really. It's not like his dad
I guess
maybe in some ways, maybe like
he comes from a right-wing ruling class, like old money family, kind of through patched together by like marriages, and
through his
whatever.
mom, sort of, like his the like cattle ranch family, Although,
and then his Swanson stepmother on top of that, obviously his dad was very good at marrying up,
Yeah, definitely. So,
I don't know. It's like King World feels kind of sus. I wonder if I've looked into that. But I looked up their thing. They were the one responsible for syndicating Oprah all over the place in the 90s. Interesting.
So I mean, I feel like we should save Steve Harvey Oswald's question about Masih al-Najjad for like later, since we can't really address that aspect of it. But
right, she's the hair lady, right?
Yeah, she's the hair lady. The hair lady. Yeah. But she literally is the hair lady. Like her entire career and identity revolves around her hair. But Yeah, so, but in terms of Tucker, yeah, I mean, he's sus. And we certainly haven't heard the last of him. We'll continue to hear about him, I'm sure.
There might be a Tucker 2028, or he's paving the groundwork for JD.
I don't think about 20. Yeah, I don't know about 2028. I mean, it's interesting because I feel like, I don't know. It really depends. Like, I feel like he might be tempted, but I also feel like, I don't know. I think that JD might be enough of like a little Yale like slime ball that he could like, you know, trick. Like, I'm thinking of his debate with what's his name, Tim Walz. Yeah, where he was able to like kind of like present himself as like totally reasonable or whatever. Whereas like I don't know if Tucker, like I think that Tucker just has so much of a backlog that he wouldn't be like, he was literally saying, and again, like, you know why I said this. It's funny because like at one time like people would be like, oh, you know, Tucker's also talking about demons, like these SJ people. Like, oh, yeah, what does that tell you? It's like, well, he's also talking about anti-Zionism. He's also talking about, you know,
now
like
even
unequivocally true.
Now even Big Hassan is a little taken aback by
him.
Well, no, he's saying like this is disturbing. This guy is saying all the shit that I say all the time. Like, what the fuck? I mean, I guess to be fair, he's not buying it. Like, he's sussed out in, you know, a similar way to us. But yeah, people did say that about, oh, he's talking about demons, just like the fucking astral world lies of SJ and, you know. Blah, blah, blah.
Right. Oh, they're trying, like, you know, mystification, anti-idealism, you know, but whatever. I mean, I don't necessarily believe that, well, is there a spell around Trump? I'm not ruling it out. I don't know if Tucker was scratched by a demon. It probably was one of his 4 dogs that he sleeps with, but
well, according to Professor Jang, like, there is some mechanism by which Trump
didn't he
is
say
God.
That Trump was God? Yeah,
because everyone's thinking about him all the time.
Oh, right. Okay. But yeah, I mean, in that case, then, like, you know, I guess that. Oh, is it because everyone's thinking about it all the time? He like gains power. I didn't like listen to his actual statement, but I'm like, well, if anything that you're thinking about all the time is God, then like, you know, any given person who you're talking to.
I only saw the little blurb. It sounded kind of insane and like.
I'm sure it was stupid. Actually, let's just not talk about it.
No, we can't. Yeah, like, no platform. No platform. No free cloud for Professor. Professor Redacted.
No, I need to stop wondering what people mean when they say things. But yeah, anyway. But yeah, I mean, I think actually that is another example where people know that there's stuff going on there. People know that there's spells being cast, and you know, they're trying to. It happened with Jin Theory. They're trying to, you know, monopolize it, but we won't let them, folks.
No, we won't.
But
we certainly won't.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know if like he will. I feel like he can't. Like, he couldn't actually. I don't know if he would like be successful ultimately, because like, even though I do think that like. It is disgusting when like I almost want to call them the libs, but like the presumed like hacking. Sorry, I called them hacking. I'm sorry. Really, they are. They are the. Yeah, they really are the fucking people. You know, like the dirt bags, right? The vanguard, right, of this movement. Like they like kind of act like Israel's a toxic issue, and like we need to just like not bring it up because like it's not like. I think the opposite is true in a lot of ways, but I think that like it is the stuff like saying like that, like talking about Trump as being the Antichrist. I think that there is like kind of a aversion to which is sensible in many ways. Like I think that there is generally in America an aversion to like someone who is openly talking about like the possibility that the president's closest advisors are under a spell. Like, I think that might play badly like an electorate. He's done that a lot lately.
Yeah.
You know, he's done that a lot. Yeah.
Say, like,
I mean,
sounds
if he
little.
wins the presidency, I'm going to enter politics.
I died when he's like talking about Trump and his baby. And it's like, it sounds a bit like the Antichrist. Not an attack. You know, like he does that little thing. Yeah. Not an attack. Like, you know, but it's like you just called him the Antichrist.
Yes, exactly. He literally said, like, this isn't an attack, but could this be the Antichrist? I'm like, well, that's not an attack. Like, what? Yeah. Like, that was funny. That was funny as hell.
He's just asking like, questions. Yeah. No, yeah, like, I'm not saying we should necessarily go full
again,
Antichrist.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, he's Dajalic.
And actually,
for
what
sure.
he said. what he said in that interview is true. It's like I don't actually know what the Antichrist. I mean, I wouldn't like. It was like on one level, it was a huge lie because he denied saying that, which he like unequivocally did. But he was saying that like I wouldn't say that because I don't know what the Antichrist is. I mean, is it even one person? Is it? I'm not sure. I don't know what this even is. So I wouldn't say that one person is the Antichrist. But and then like in that same interview, he like implied that like Trump was using like witchcraft on Marco Rubio or whatever. Like people around him get sick. I don't know what it is, but
did he really say that? Oh
yeah,
my god!
No, he did. He said like when you're around him, it feels like he talked about he personally having experienced it. He said like it's like you're in a trance. It's like you're on hash. I don't know how to explain it. It's strange. Yeah,
that's a new one. Trump like ensorcels you if you're within his presence.
I mean, I don't know if like he is the spell caster, but like certainly there is like a spell on him and people around him. It seems. And like he's like, I'm not saying this is true. I mean, I really may be wrong, but it's worth asking. Like it. So
I'm not
folks,
sure what cleavage he's trying to, what.
But yeah, Trump is
Dajalic,
and he is part of the Dajjal system for sure. We've said that since very, very early on. He is the great parody. He like the the gain only and Antichrist. Very much, very, very perfectly. He fits that role. So, yeah. And I think, but I think that his saying that is not a testament to the only insight that he has is that like he knows what plays, and I think that you can see that across the board. So, and Plattner's another great example of knowing what plays. So watch out, folks.
That fight agency on your side. Just because he's saying something, it's like that is what politicians do. They do pander to you, and it's like an abusive dynamic. It's like being locked in the Patty Hearst closet where like any crumb of attention or validate or like niceness that is given to you, you're like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like, wow, I feel seen and all that stuff. And it's like, that's how politics usually, that's how like it works.
Yeah.
It just keeps getting worse. So it's like, it's almost surprising now when somebody says something that's supposed to be outside like a little bit outside the Overton window or a little bit, there's all this stuff about, the Democratic Party, like it's like on the one hand, yes, we all know like they're in the tank for Israel and Zionism, and the leaders of the party would prefer to not have people that are critical of Israel being like senators. But like there's also an acknowledgement that like we just got our asses kicked in the last election, and like this is where the people are at.
Yeah.
So
totally.
like, of course they are going to modulate. And then, we shouldn't act like, oh, this is like this amazing revolutionary rupture that like thanks to this one politician telling it like it is. Now, like, it's like this has already been kind of like this guy didn't come out of nowhere. So like he was selected to run. He was like profiled as like and then convinced to run. So like this guy's already pre-approved by like the party machinery. He has a slightly different brand and flavor than some of the other ones, and he came out at the right time when the Gaza issue was becoming more unavoidable, and got out ahead of it a little bit. And that's fine. Yeah, like we want more. Certainly don't want senators that are voting to give like weapons to Israel, but also like the lesson of Fetterman, like that's the other point is that Fetterman, I don't think he was that performatively like anti-Israel ever, but he certainly gave off that Bernie vibe, didn't he? That he was a fucking populist.
Yeah.
He's wearing his cargo shorts to fucking
you
the
certainly
Senate
didn't
floor.
you certainly expected to be the most Zionist politician, like even more so than like Joe Biden. Like he was. Yeah. You didn't necessarily expect that. You expected he would be like maybe. You maybe get the sense that he would be like kind of. Like lightly critical in the way that some of these people are,
and
like maybe,
on top of that, he's also
maybe like the 51st, most Zionist senator or something. Right.
But no, he's right to number one, and like, and just like Plattner. And kind of just like Tucker, like he's a guy who wears his hoodie and his basketball shorts and stumbles around Braddock, Pennsylvania with his tattoos, looking like a fucking steel worker who's sick of this fucking bullshit. He's a rich, his dad's like owns an insurance company, went to the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Like he's another rich kid, like super rich kid who didn't have to work any job, like basically before he became mayor of Braddock, which like his family's money.
Oysterman. I think he's actually an oysterman.
Well, no, Plattner's an oysterman, but
right, sorry, I'm talking about Fetterman. Okay,
no, Plattner had a job of murdering people overseas for 20 years.
Right, that is a job. That is a job.
Yeah, which he said was a great fucking experience. Like, 100% recommend.
Right,
like,
well, because it's intellectually challenging to like murder Arabs, I guess. And as we know, it's also fucking leftist.
It is
dealing
fucking
with
leftist.
these Hajis, which I think he called them. Sorry, I didn't. I hate to use the slur, but this is what the hero calls.
He even,
Muslims, so,
if I recall correctly, he even did talk about peeing on a dead body in Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's a custom, I guess. It's like a rite of passage
for high wasps that decide they have to go overseas to kill brown people to find out who they are or something. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, and guess what? It's funny.
Oh no,
if you don't think it's funny,
did he do it or did he? He like defended someone else who had done it. Is that
maybe there was
someone was like actually like tried for it or like court-martialed or
it was
like,
one of these like Navy SEALs or Green Berets that did
and he was
it,
like
and
regrettably we have to deal with this, like it's a but it's fine, you should piss on these people. It's like and it's weird how like excuses are made for these people because like in any other context, so like if it were someone who you didn't like for some other kind of like weird reason, like because they like say the right things, then like you would like think that was the most despicable thing ever. Like imagine if like an IDF soldier said that about like even like a member of ISIS or something, like it would be despicable.
Though they would never do that because they're on the same side. But like, a member of Hamas or something like,
or even like, like even imagine if like one of these advisors like who were in Syria to like fight the Islamic State. Imagine if one of them had said that, like I piss on a dead body, like LOL, like.
Unfortunately, I don't have to imagine it because it happened.
Well, okay,
well,
exactly.
But if it was somebody who was like a shit lib, like centrist, who didn't have all the right
Pete
little
Buttigieg
issues.
did that
If Pete
to,
Buttigieg did it, people would be like, that little rat freak,
member of
like
the
cancel
Taliban or
him.
something.
He's disgusting,
Right.
imperialist scum. But then if somebody just mouths the right bag, if they wrap the right stuff and they're right on and they're heavy and they also like support a kind of mild, like maybe a mild defunding of some of Israel's like American-backed arsenal. Then, it's amazing, and we have to
got
support
over
it.
this. I mean, we should stop. We're running out of time. I mean, I could go on about this for a while. I'm about to give my like I'm about to give my my other hot take, which is that like it continually annoys me, and like again, like ISIS is a terrible group, right? Like like inexcusable, like awful. However, like it is bizarre how like people understand that like the US like lies about its enemies and constantly tells lies and like exaggerates and uses propaganda in order to like get what it wants all the time, and you can't trust everything that you read from a Graham Ward article in the Atlantic. And yet like when that is the like it's the one thing where people like again, I'm not saying that like ISIS was actually good or anything like that, right? It's by no means this should not be construed this way, even though I'm sure people will construe it in that way. Like you're wrong, and I'm explicitly saying no. Like it's appalling. I mean, Dimitri, I'm sure can remember like how disgusted I was at the time. Like
we both were.
As a Muslim, deeply offended, as like like almost like every single Muslim in the world was. So but like it is amazing how like there is this kind of belief in ISIS as like an undifferentiated horde of Islamic demons who like don't count as humans, and like therefore like anything like. That's the thing. Like there were people who fought for ISIS who didn't even want to be in ISIS and like were forced, like in the same way that the PKK does this. They had,
child
soldiers fighting for ISIS, right?
Yeah.
So like it like just because you're like you're killing ISIS, you're fucking killing ISIS, doesn't mean that like it's okay, like that you're necessarily like not possibly committing like or participating in an atrocity, especially like if you're doing it for a quote unquote, in Plattner's words, intellectual challenge. Like it doesn't mean that it's like morally right and cool and like beautiful and leftist. It's
or
disgusting.
Clout on the internet. It's not that doesn't like excuse any of it. Even when some of those people defensively will go, well, ISIS was the one that was backed by the CIA. And it's like, well, first of all, the other side was like openly backed by the CIA. Like they had Green Berets embedded with them, and the Air Force was providing air support for them 24/7. So that's like that's not even contested. But
fighting
it's like,
ISIS was literally how the U.S. was able to get like a foothold in Syria. Ultimately, right?
That was their excuse to go in.
Certainly,
literally.
like there's this confusion about it because people are like, oh, like they were CIA. Yes, they were. At first, like, initially, but then like that became the whole like narrative of like we must defeat the Islamic State. That was exactly how they got their foothold. That's how they took over Syria's oil wells.
Right.
That's like what enabled them to like openly like sponsor the PKK and do all these things.
Yeah, it was like the cultivation of a highly like visible and like enraging enemy. Like a really just like galvanizing like enemy force that was allowed to develop. And because if they were going to go into Syria, like that aligns with U.S. objectives. And then simultaneously, by virtue of that success, which was partially enabled by like NATO and the U.S. and its allies kind of looking the other way and letting it happen, because for a time it was just undifferentiated mass of like the rebels in Syria, and like they totally denied that any of them were like Al Qaeda or anything like that, and so they let it fester. They did timber sycamore and funded, weapons to those groups. And then when they kind of, broke out and went crazy, and invaded Iraq and everything, then there was the perfect excuse for the U.S. to be like, now we have to directly intervene, even though, Obama didn't do the red line thing, but then he found just 2 years later with a couple flashy beheading videos of Americans.
You didn't have to do the whole thing of like, because everyone could get on board with that, right? I mean, obviously, as we know, like Iran was fighting Sunni groups, including the Islamic State in Syria, right? So, Russia couldn't object, right? Like even Assad couldn't object.
Yeah. And I think in their case, they were justified because they weren't getting U.S. support completely propped up by the U.S. that embedded with like U.S. and CIA people to do so in furtherance of like U.S. goals. I think, Iran was genuinely trying to stop the Islamic State because it saw it as a puppet of like something that benefited like the U.S. and Israel and the Gulf states. And
they were trying to keep Assad in power, and they saw that as a threat to that, which it certainly was. And like, but that's the thing, like, just because that is true does not mean that the U.S.'s proxy fighting that group was meant to keep, was not intended ultimately to change the political situation in Syria.
It had kind of a similar end purpose in that it would end up with like the balkanization of Syria or taking its oil, and which they did. But anyways,
which they did. Now I guess they're getting it back, but al-Shara is like a pretty big disappointment. I mean, I guess
except to the U.S. government, they love him.
Well, and to like the UAE, it's pretty. I mean, Assad must be pretty pissed off, like in Russia, because like for all these like the UAE, he spent so much energy trying to cozy up to, and then like for them to just turn around and embrace Jelani. But I mean, I guess how disappointed you are kind of depends on what your expectations were, which really no one should have had very high expectations. But I guess in some ways, like he's not a disappointment because it's exactly what one would have expected.
I think it's just what the Empire ordered, finally, or it's the best possible outcome for them, it is the best, what they want, and for Israel, like they're kind of neutralized now.
Great outcome, or like it could have been much worse, but
but anyways, so watch out for these eastern, northeast, these patrician populists, these Mayflower Maoists, and everybody, just because they talk purdy, yes, they're the best at that. They've been to the right schools. They've been to Hotchkiss, like they know how to talk good. They were,
yeah,
whatever. That's their superpower. That's why Patty Hearst studies art history and not, being a veterinarian, like, et cetera.
Right.
But yeah, I guess, sorry we couldn't have the chat with us for most of the episode today, but
yeah, we're gonna figure out this problem, so yeah, we can get back on the stream. But,
it does seem a little better now. I haven't been like terrible.
It's
collapses.
Been a little
in
and out towards the end, but for most of this, it was like very smooth.
With
our
Well, hopefully it will be resolved. We'll be back on Monday with part 3 of Year of the Phoenix on Patreon, getting into the proper, events of the Patty Hearst kidnapping itself. And y'all are going to want to tune into that because, boy, has it already gotten weird. And we haven't even gotten to the kidnapping yet, in parts 1 and 2. But the revolutionary trip is only going to get heavier, Mm-hmm. So, we'll see y'all there on Monday. But until then, dear listeners, stay vigilant.
Peace.